Hi there. Can everybody hear me? Oh wait, I need to mute that one. So, how's the audio? Last time I did a live stream, it wasn't actually going through the Yeti, and I had crappy audio, and I don't want that. 5x5. Cool. So let's talk pareidolia, shall we? Wait, where'd the... All right, I'm still getting the hang of all this OBS thing. Ideally, I think you need 3 screens to make this work properly because I've just run out of space. Got everything everywhere. So, yeah, so welcome everybody. Brian, hi there, Brian. Sherry, do you two sleep? You are literally everywhere. I think the whole internet would fail if you weren't online. Who else there? Raleigh Modoc, welcome. Let's see here. Just give me a moment more. I've been trying to set this up all morning and get my files in order and figure out how to handle OBS. So while we're waiting for people to pile in, I'll just play a couple of things here. Let me know how the audio is for the video here. Ooh, loud. Sorry.
Yeah, biogeology to me is what it is. It's the idea that these stones and many of the rocks that we see around us were originally giant trees or titans or even smaller creatures, and they petrified in one way or another. And so we're not looking at something that took hundreds of millions of years through compression. We're looking at something that was recently biology, and now it's geology. And so that's why I called it biogeology. Petrified organs, because I believe they were petrified. I don't think that it was through a mud fossil process, because the rest of the body should be there, or part of the body should be there. And I believe it happened very quickly, if not instantaneously.
Expertitis. Are you suffering from expertitis? Do you find yourself casting judgment on subjects you've never investigated? Do you know increasingly more and more about less and less? Then try Paradigm Breaker today. Side effects may include perceiving the world with new eyes, increased humility, and a sudden willingness to consider possibilities that most would never dream of. For the sake of argument, let us begin with the far-fetched premise that the mountain Montgo really was once a gigantic creature, and that many of the stones found in this region are indeed the petrified remains of creatures large and small. I'd like to make it clear, I'm neither a geologist, paleontologist, or biologist, nor do I consider myself an expert on any of these topics. I'm simply a curious person who's been willing to consider ideas that many would find absurd, and in so doing, I've begun to recognize patterns in geology which challenge important aspects of the mainstream geological paradigm. Experts in these fields will likely consider me a victim of an overactive imagination, recognizing patterns where none exist, and a textbook example of the Dunning-Kruger Effect, someone who knows just enough about a subject to get himself into trouble. While that may be true, I'd ask you to consider just how many times throughout history our understanding of the physical world has undergone major revisions. It's easy to dismiss ideas that seem ridiculous with the wave of a hand. It's an entirely different thing to allow ourselves to examine the objective world without preconceived notions.
Yeah, that's weird. Welcome back to another episode 94 of the Up is Down podcast with me, your host, your neighbor, your friend, your shadow dean, Reiner, the Wolfman in the night, coming at you from...
All right, so how's my audio now compared to the video that just played? Is that more or less the same? Let's just compare the two.
The chalet, the beautiful northwest...
Yeah? Let me know. So... Welcome, everybody. So, yeah, this is going to be fun. I got all kinds of things related to the subject matter to talk about today, and a lot of loose threads that I've been wanting to touch on for a while. So, hopefully I can keep to my notes and be able to find all the different material that I'd like to share with you, and figure out where the chat room is, and keep track of the keep track of the audio and the video, and yeah, wonderful. Glad to hear it. So, yeah. So this was this stream was actually inspired because I posted a video. I don't know. I suppose about a week ago or so, and it wasn't a topic that I'm so particularly interested in, but I have taken an interest in it in the past, and it's this whole idea of the jet fuel hoax, and let's see, there you are. Hi everybody. Yeah, so it's just one of those things that you come across, and then you're like, you know, is there anything to this? And then you dig into it a little bit, and you find that that maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But ultimately, I've never worked on a plane. I've never, I don't know anything about how airports function, and so, you know, for me to make a decision about what it is, whether there's truth to the supposed conspiracy or not, is it's not really for me to decide. But though I'm not an expert in any of those fields, I can listen to people who know a lot about different subjects, and discern for myself whether or not there's something to it. And so I had a patient who was a pilot, or is a pilot, and he was coming to me, and we were just talking about different stuff, and I brought up this subject to him. There we go, full screen. Hi. And he wasn't having any of it, and so I started talking a bit more and more. And I mentioned this whole idea of different kinds of compression technologies that might be utilized in the wings. I mean, in the engines, or that the fuel might be in the wings as they claim, but maybe it was only being used for takeoffs and landings, or to speed up in the air or something like that. And so the more we talked about it, and this is a guy who was very open to a lot of kind of alternative ideas, the more he was just like, no. So I posted this little 10-minute video, and it turned out to be the top performing video that I'd done as far as view count, and had a ton of comments. And in the end, I just kind of stayed out of the comment section, because ultimately I don't really have a horse in this race. It's not something I'm attached to emotionally, but I think it's very interesting, because it's an example of how people can kind of just jump off the edge when it comes to believing things. And so the reason I posted the video also is because somebody gave me a shout out, and they were expressing appreciation for the fact that in the research that I've done over the last 3.5 years since I started this channel, the majority of the research has actually been empirical. There's been physical evidence for the things that I'm talking about. And that's one of the things that's so nice about some of the other channels out there that I often give shout outs to, is that Paul Cook is one who comes to mind, because everything he's doing now is boots on the ground. He's got video footage. He's really digging into things, and he's not afraid to question things that other people have accepted as fact already. And I mean, that's what we should all be doing. If this is a truth or community, we should be exercising discernment when it comes to everything. We shouldn't just buy the pet theories. So yeah, fuel is stored in the wings. There are tankers that are coming and fueling up. Some say that there's fuel stored under the airports, under the pavement, and that the trucks are just being used for the actual pumping. It's not my area of expertise, but it's definitely a hot potato, and so I put it out there because I think we need to all, question ourselves, question our own beliefs, and look at things with more rational eyes. And so let me just play another little thing here, and we can. Hello, and welcome to Unveiling a Titan, the first of what will be several videos in a series in which I hope to provide conclusive proof that Titans actually existed, or at the very least, a lot of compelling evidence that will spark curiosity. This is a famous mountain on the east coast of Spain, in the Costa Blanca, that's called Montgo. It's also known as the elephant. So you can see the shape of the head here, the upper back, and then tapering off. And in fact, there's a plateau here that's higher than the town in this area that looks a lot like a trunk that's been extended, and you see it from the right angle. I've been hiking this mountain for about 8 years now. I've been inside of the eye on numerous occasions. There are several other caves that I've also been in. But it's really only been for the last year that I've been looking at this mountain with different eyes, and I was exposed to some new ideas that caused me to look at it differently, and I began gathering evidence. I've taken evidence. Some would say that evidence is entirely cherry-picking, pareidolia. The Dunning-Kruger Effect is kicking in, and we'll talk about each of those things. But I brought this up because this is the first video I ever made on the channel 3.5 years ago, February 2019. I'd been doing about 9 months of research before I made this video, and had already planned to do 5 videos at the time that I made it. And it was always intended to be an introduction to just about the craziest idea somebody could latch onto. In fact, people have called these ideas crazier than flat Earth, and which might be true. I think they all kind of go hand in hand. But the thing about this video is, if I've been tempted to do like an Unveiling a Titan Part 1 redo, where I'd go through and I talk about the different things that I would have done differently, and the different pictures that I wouldn't have included. And we can kind of do that a little bit live here. But first, before I do that, I just want to say, for people who might be new and coming to this channel who've never been here before, I just want to talk very, very briefly about the research that I've done. And let me pull that up here. So if we go to this channel, and you go to the videos and you sort by the oldest, then you'll get really the evolution of this quote-unquote harebrained idea, right? So I made 4 videos on the mountain, and then it went a different direction after that, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But the first video was always meant as an overview to just introduce the idea, and the bulk of the research and the evidence that I've presented is in parts 2 through 6. And so most of the people who've criticized the work that I've done have seen the first video and then just dismissed this as the stupidest thing that somebody could come up with, and then they don't even bother to look at the evidence. And the people who claim to be debunking me or are just mocking, they're basically resorting to ad hominem attacks or appeals to ridicule, different kinds of fallacious reasoning. They're the ones who are supposedly championing and protecting the scientific method, and they wrap themselves in their cloaks of credibility and make claims about what I have or haven't done, and then they never actually address what I've done. So if you're really curious about this, don't judge it by the first video. Watch it at 1.5 speed if it's hard for you to get through, and then go on to parts 2 through 6, and you'll see that even if I'm wrong about everything, the manner in which I've approached this is worthy of some sort of praise, because I haven't just jumped off the cliff with this idea. The way it began, which I talk about in videos, is through introduction to the ideas of mud fossils, titans, the idea that petrification could happen very rapidly, and that perhaps major cornerstones of geology are not necessarily built on the most solid ground. So as I got into this more and discovered more and more, I started to look at all of the stones that I was seeing with new eyes, because I realized that, well, maybe maybe things that we've been told about geology are not necessarily true. And as a kid and later on, there's lots of stones that I've come across, and I've looked at them, I've thought, man, this looks like it's something that grew. This looks biological. It looks like tissues of different sorts. And so it was, it was always kind of baffling to me how just random geological processes or compression, sedimentary layering, which later becomes metamorphic rock because of all the pressure and the heat, and that starts to undergo some kind of metamorphic transformation, and then you get all this kind of swirling curves that comes as things start to melt. We'll talk about melt as well today. And so I just let it go, as we all do, I think. As we pick up a stone when we're kids, and I don't have any to grab, but and we're like, wow, this looks like such and such, and I'd seen stones as a kid that looked like a heart or something that I picked up, but when we get into school, we're taught that's not possible, because the process of petrification that takes hundreds of millions of years doesn't apply to soft tissue except only in the absolute rarest of circumstances, because there's larvae and bacteria and different things that will eat away at the flesh long before it would have a chance to undergo the petrification process. So because of that, and because that's what we're all taught in schools as little kids, and then on into high school and into college and university, it never occurred to me that something like that might even be possible. And now I'm of a different mind. And so I'm going to talk a little bit also about my background and what my headspace was approaching this, and then and how that ties into pareidolia and the importance of discernment and truthers being honest and actually doing their due diligence and their research. And when it comes to making claims about things or claims about people and pointing the finger, and I think it's important to remember that when you point the finger at somebody, you got three more pointing back at you. So you need to really look into things before you pass judgment or ridicule or accuse people of being dishonest or shills. So let me just check in a little bit with you guys and see. So let's see here. Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Jeffrey. Hi, Jeffrey. Joe Blogs. Act Like You Know. Raphael. Great podcast that Raphael runs with a guy named Jim called Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. And it's definitely worth visiting. Jeffrey Bale, Mercy Street, welcome. Super conscious. Ignore those with a golden fleece. This is for free thinkers. Keep doing you. And Rob. Rob has been a big help. Rob helped me set up the Telegram channel. Maybe you could post a link to that, Rob. So I've set up a BIOGEOLOGY Telegram channel. And there's also a second link. If you go to the first channel, you'll see the link to the chat. And so a lot of people are asking me for my email address, and they want to share different images with me, different pictures that they've taken of stones that they've found around the world. And I've had a lot of emails, and I'm really terrible at getting back to emails, getting back to people. And so we set that up, and it's a great place where people can go in and they can post the images of different things. And my one request is, if you're going to post an image and make a claim about it, back it up with some evidence, because this is all about pareidolia, this live stream today. And you saw the thumbnail. Cute little guy, right? Just some knots in wood. I don't know if you knew that or not, but can post your pareidolia video. I'm not sure if it depends on how big it is, and yeah, you can post pictures and videos there as well. So that's a great place for people to go and have some dialogue on these subjects. And if you just have got some pictures of really interesting stones and you have no idea what they are, post them there, because then we can talk about them. I dip in and out. I work as a chiropractor, and so I'm a family person, chiropractor, and doing all this on the side. So sometimes I forget to check my emails and get back to people. So if you're waiting for a reply from me about rocks that you've sent pictures of, I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to you, but a better way to do it would be to go into the Telegram channel and post them there. And yeah, so let me just talk a little bit about my background, because I mentioned I'm a chiropractor. I went to school originally in California. I did my undergrad degree at the University of California in Santa Barbara. And I was initially a philosophy major. And I went to Italy as an exchange student my junior year. And when I got there, all of the philosophy classes were all this old stuff. It was all Plato and Aristotle, and it was stuff that I'd already studied a bit, but I'd never really gone deep into it. Most of the philosophy that I was studying was actually books about philosophy and people's take on different things. And the same came to certain aspects of science, like, for example, quantum physics. I was very interested in the new physics. I was interested in how the new discoveries in physics were basically looping back around and starting to confirm things that the ancient esoteric teachings and religions were giving us. And so I was really taken by that the highest forms of technology that we had were starting to confirm these different, the Buddhist notions of the existence of, our existence, and not just Buddhist, but all the different religions. And so when I got to Italy, I'm like, I don't want to study this old stuff. I want the new stuff. So what I did instead was I switched to a degree in Italian cultural studies, because what I really wanted was a classics degree, because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life when I grew up. And so I wanted to study a lot of different things to just figure out what I liked. And so I switched to Italian cultural studies because it was kind of a way to game the system. It allowed me to literally take any course I wanted while I was there, because it was all at an Italian university and it was all in Italian. So there was basically no way they couldn't accept the different courses that I took for credit. So basically what it allowed me to do is do about 1.5 years worth of study while having a lot of fun and learning a lot of things about the classic world and history of art and history of literature. And so it was a great thing to do. I went back to the University of California for my senior year. I finished off the year and graduated with high honors, and ended up going back to waiting tables, which is how I put myself through school, because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And while I was in Italy, I met the mother of my children, my partner, and she and I had a distance relationship for a few years, and then I decided I wanted to go back to Italy. So I went back to Italy and got into tech. I started as an English teacher once I got to Italy, because I had no work visa. I just figured I'll buy a one-way ticket. I had an apartment that I could stay in for a few months, and I figured I'll be able to find a job as at least an English teacher. And I was right. I got something within a couple of weeks and was able to support myself. But after a year, I got totally bored of it and wanted to do something different. So I had a background in tech. There's some videos on my channel about my history in tech. It's a jaded history, to say the least, but interesting, very, very interesting. And so I decided to send out CVs to different resumes to different American companies that had a presence in Italy, and sent out about 50 of them. And after a few months, out of the blue, I got a call from IBM, and they were interested in hiring me as a junior technical writer. I had no experience in the subject, but because I was fluent in Italian, I had a college degree, and I had a background in tech. They didn't know about my background, but they knew I was a hobbyist. I got the job and worked for about a year there before moving to Sweden. And so I was working, not lecturing me. Somebody lecturing me? You guys are talking to each other. Okay. Moved to Sweden in 2001, just before 9/11, just before my daughter was born, and just before the IT bubble went kablooey and burst. And so I had 2 jobs lined up. I quit my job at IBM because we had a child on the way, and decided Sweden would be a lot more sane than Rome. I was living in Rome, and Rome is nuts. Last place you'd want to be with a baby in a stroller and having to take buses or ride a scooter around or something like that. So got to Sweden, and IT bubble burst. Found myself without a job. The 2 companies that were interested in me went both on hiring freezes along with the rest of the country, and so I was there for about a year and a half, working as an English teacher again. And at that point, I was 33, 34, and IBM hired me. They had no idea. I didn't lie, though. I told them the truth about whatever they asked me about, but I didn't offer up extra information. But so then I slipped and wrenched myself a couple of different times on ice. I'm a California boy, so I wasn't used to cold, icy terrain. And wrenched myself and hurt my back a couple of times, and got help from a couple of chiropractors there, and was just thrilled with the fact that they had done something with their hands that had an immediate positive impact on my body. And I was also in my 20s, I was a massage therapist. I went to school in California, studied massage, learned a lot of different techniques, and was working with that for a while before I just got tired and bored with the fact that I wasn't getting real long-term changes with people. So I left that behind and kept working and did my undergrad degree. And then when I ended up in Sweden, I decided to go back to school. So I went back to school at 35, 5 years of school to be a chiropractor. And I had 1 child already, and a second was born in my first year of chiropractic college. That was pretty intense, because the first year of chiropractic college for me was next level difficult, because it was all in Swedish, and I was new to the country and I was still learning the language. So I was trying to study anatomy, all of the first year courses, and everyone in chiropractic says the first year is by far and away the most difficult, because they just you're bombarded with all kinds of different courses and tons of memorization. It's not like the rote memorization that so many people have to do when it comes to just regurgitating. It's actually beneficial and valuable, because you're memorizing actual concrete stuff, like different aspects of anatomy and physiology. And this is a long intro. I hope it's interesting. Because it's going to get into the pareidolia and discernment and all of these things that are in the title. And I just wanted to talk a bit about the background so you can understand how my thinking is, because I also do artwork, and I love abstraction. You can see it behind me. This is some of my artwork here. I might show some images later. And if you look at them, you can start to see things, especially if you've had a smoke or something. So I knew pareidolia well, and I love it, and I've embraced it as a manner of doing art. And so I didn't approach the mountain with pareidolia eyes. I mean, initially, it's very popular because you have this elephant shape, and the locals know it as the elephant, and so that may be pareidolia. But when I started to hear about mud fossils and titans and all these other things, I thought, wait a minute, what if it's not an elephant? And what if it's not just a mountain? What if it were actually some kind of a petrified creature? And so going back to a little bit about my past. So for my chiropractic college, I got involved in student politics because of accreditation issues. I wanted to be certain that I could take my degree anywhere. And the school that I was in was slated for accreditation, and they were about 3 years into the process, but they hadn't completed it yet. And I just wanted to make sure that they were dotting all their I's and crossing their T's and jumping through all the hoops necessary. And so I got involved in student politics. That led me to go as a representative to the World Congress of Chiropractic Students. I did that 3 times as a delegate, and then eventually went on in my 4th year of college to become the student body president. So politics took over my life there in school, and how I managed with family and passing all my exams in Swedish is beyond me. But I pulled it off. I knew I wasn't going to get good grades, but I set a goal for myself of passing every test on the first try, because I figured if I got behind, I would never finish school, and so I managed to pull that off. In the middle of my 4th year, one of the other students who knew me from the student politics took me aside, and he said, I love what you're doing, and I love the way your mind works, and I've created this new software for practice management, and I really want you to take a look at it, because I think you'll find this software to be absolutely incredible. And I'm thinking, this guy's in his 20s, and I'm thinking, how good could this possibly be? I mean, you have major companies that have 50, 100 different employees that are working on this kind of software that's being used around the world. And, what does he think he's got to offer that they're not already offering? And he showed me that first day, and it was a very, very early prototype. And it was about an hour presentation that he gave me, and my jaw hit the floor by the time I was done. And we ended up co-founding this company together called Clinic Buddy as I got out of college. So instead of going to work as a chiropractor, which I thought I was going to do, all of a sudden now I'm back in tech, and he knew about my tech background, so that was one of the reasons he was interested in me. And he was the creative genius behind this, and I wore many, many hats in the company. This is literally the first video I ever edited. It took me about a week to do this two-minute video, and I'll just show it because it's really interesting what we did, because that software is still the best software going to this date. And my partner recently sold the company, and he's set probably for life because of how well the company did. It's the largest practice management software in all of Scandinavia, and I'm proud to say that I was a co-founder of the company. So this is what we were doing. Just get a taste of this. It's only 2 minutes. So I'll just stop it there. So right off the bat, instead of a bunch of words to describe what's going on with people as far as their pain, you can just draw, and you had different tools and you had different warning flags. So that was just the initial intake. So for a chiropractor, this is amazing. So instead of having to write everything down, you can just click on some dots, and automatically down here it's converting everything into text, full text. So the journals, which are then signed because they have to be by Swedish law, and they can't be altered after they've been signed. All of it is just point and click, but that's all being converted into text. So Jesper had all of these ideas early on of taking all of the objective measurement criteria that all of the different therapists were using in the course of their work, and including those in an integrated fashion into the software. Because up to that point, and still to this day in most of the world, most of those different devices, if you're measuring weight and scale, sway and posture and all these things, they're separate devices that are not integrated in any way with the software package. So Jesper started to contract people on Rent-A-Coder to do little apps, and we had 3D postural analysis. So you could just take a picture with a webcam, zoom in, plot the points for the eyes, plot the points for the shoulders. If there's any shoulder drop or forward head posture, you can immediately see it, and it's already calculating angles for you. These are orthopedic tests here. They're all included, so there's all kinds of help tools for the chiropractors. So we filmed everything with video, showing people how to do the range of motion. So here we integrated it with the Wii balance board, which was amazing because that was wireless. There was another bit of hardware that was sold on the market that was about $3,000, and it was this big clunky set of scales that weighed about 50 pounds. Not portable, you couldn't take it anywhere, but with the Wii balance board, which was way more sensitive, it was wireless, and we were able to calculate sway, and here you can see the weight distributions and you can see the center of gravity. That should be right about here, so that person's leaning really far to their left. So this is all objective measurement criteria, right? If you're gonna, you've got the subjective experience of pain and whether the person is hurting or not, and how much pain that is, and that differs from person to person. One person's 10 might be another person's 3, but some things are very objective and they're measurable, and you can go back later and see, are any of these things improving? And if they're improving, then you have more than just what the person is saying, because there's the placebo effect as well, right? They might think they're getting better, and so then they get better. Well, if they think they're getting better and they get better, they got better. So you should be maximizing the placebo effect, right? As opposed to what the medical doctors do with their prognoses. They're maximizing the nocebo effect, right? Creating fear in people's minds instead of helping them to maximize the body's inborn curative capacities. Exercises is a big one, so you had a whole database of all kinds of different exercises, and you can just click on the ones that were appropriate for the person. It would print them out on the printer, and you could write in the reps and how many you wanted them to do. Boom. This was the coup de grace of our software. And ended up being used, unfortunately, by very few therapists, but was absolutely incredible. So there's a company called FLIR, F-L-I-R, that's it's a camera manufacturer that's in Sweden, and they sell primarily to the military. They do they do infrared photography, and they do it better than anybody else. And so the problem with By the way, we're probably going to go about 3 hours today, so we'll get to the pareidolia. Don't worry. So this hardware is incredible because you can set levels for temperature, and that's what you're seeing here. This is your 33 degrees, 35 degrees. So this is only, what you're seeing is bright red and blue here is really only a 2-degree variance. But the hotter the area, the more it shows up in red. So with this kind of a camera, a person can come into you doubled over in pain, and you could have them take their shirt off and stand, facing the wall and photograph them or video them with this camera, and you can actually tell them where they have pain before they tell you, because pain and inflammation go hand in hand. Where you have tissue damage and tissue repair, you have inflammation. And so this was incredible, and this should be the standard in practice for medical doctors as well. And all I can, white hot, exactly. And all I can say is that the reason it's not is probably because it's so effective. So when it comes to something like mammograms for breast cancer, right? What they do in a mammogram, they want to determine whether there are any tumors there. And I'm not going to go into any kind of talk about the different approaches to therapies when it comes to cancer. That's a controversial topic, but I'm not a big fan of the mainstream medical approach to just about anything at this point. They're good for crisis management, but when it comes to promoting health, well, that's a different story. So in a mammogram, what they do is they compress the breast violently between two plexiglass, just squish it between the plexiglass, and then they radiate it with an X-ray. So could it be that squishing the breast violently might create micro tears? And then if you radiate it and you have all kinds of micro tears, is it possible that could actually contribute to the spread of cancer? I don't know. Not saying anything about that, but it does seem to be a direct correlation between the number of mammograms a woman has had and the likelihood that she'll end up with breast cancer. So, look into natural stuff. But so if they were using this, there are different studies that have been done that show that infrared photography is actually more effective for early detection of tumors than radiation, or than X-rays. Why would that be? Because what is a tumor? Tumor are cells that are multiplying at a rapid rate. They're using up the resources around them. They're sending out tendrils, and they're just basically sucking the lifeblood out of the tissue around it. And so as that's happening, you have increased metabolic process. Well, if you have increased metabolic process, then you get inflammation, which is what we're seeing here, right? Well, not necessarily. She's not inflamed necessarily in this picture, but we're just showing the technology here. But with infrared, and now infrared cameras, when we got this was about a 12,000 euro camera, and now it's down to, I don't know, you can get handheld ones for far, far cheaper. So yeah, so let me take a little bit of water here. So to me, it's a real crime, because this is an expensive technology, and if this is really good for early detection, if the tumor isn't so big that it's becoming life-threatening in some way and needs radiation or chemotherapy, then maybe it could be dealt with changes in nutrition, awarenesses about the causes of inflammation, because as most people are in the medical world are in agreement about, most all illnesses and disease processes have at their base inflammation. So anything we can do generally to lower inflammation in our body is going to have a positive effect on our health. So I'm just really proud of this part of the software, because it was so innovative, and it still hasn't even been integrated. Here it's mapping it out with topography, showing the high ground would be higher temperature, low ground, low temperature. And you can see here the black is the bra strap. That's not emitting any heat, and you can see the bra strap right through there. We were the first to integrate hardware encryption. These were special keys. I think we bought them from Germany, if I remember correctly. So like I said, you had to sign the journals at the end of each visit, and then it couldn't be changed. And this hardware encryption was associated to a specific therapist, and they had their own login. Those were, just for drawing pain. And this is just zipping through. Fully integrated software, the whole economic aspects of it were all integrated. Calendar functions, online calendar functions. Yeah, so that was Clinic Buddy, and it was a company that I worked with for 2.5 years before I started to lose my mind, because I had already wanted to get away from tech when I was at IBM, because I just couldn't stand all of the different details and bugs and dealing with people online with customer support and et cetera, et cetera. So I just I ended up leaving the company and taking a job as a chiropractor in southern Sweden in a clinic where I could basically just go in and start working full time and basically have a full schedule seeing patients right off the bat. Because when you're in chiropractic college, you're just itching for patients. There are not enough of them. You're in the chiropractic clinic wishing you were fully booked, and unless you're going out there onto the street and talking to people to bring them in, you're oftentimes struggling to get your minimum requirements when it comes to graduation. So I left Clinic Buddy, and like I said, Jesper, my colleague, went on to be very successful. I forgot one of the most important parts, and this is one of the reasons I started, because I was involved with the World Congress of Chiropractic Students and had been around the world with the political issues relating to my school and their accreditation. I got to know a lot of people that were high up, because I was always attracted to the speakers. A lot of people would just sit in their chairs afraid to ask questions, and I was always like, I wanted to go straight to the person who knew the most to ask them questions. So I ended up becoming friends with a lot of the different actual educators that were teaching about different chiropractic techniques, teaching about research. I met a lot of people that were really high up in chiropractic politics as well. Got pictures of me with like 3 or 4 different World Federation of Chiropractic presidents, all because of my time with the World Congress of Chiropractic Students and Clinic Buddy. And once we really started getting going with Clinic Buddy, we started going to different countries and doing not just trade shows, but also going to the different events that were being sponsored by the associations, the chiropractic associations. And so we started presenting this software and demonstrating it. And but the most amazing thing that Jesper had built into it was the ability to extract all data for research purposes. So basically, you could, using the software, as it started to spread into more and more clinics, you could start to draw in thousands and thousands of patient visits, even eventually millions, and chunk all that data without any extra work, because it was already there with all of the different I can't remember the meta tags and the different ways in which the data is dealt with. I've never been really big on statistics or that whole aspect of research. So that was Clinic Buddy, and before getting involved with Clinic Buddy, I had to do my master's in master's in chiropractic, and basically this was the 5th year of the education, and almost the entire year is spent working on this research project. And this is a document that is don't have page numbering there. It's almost a 30-page document, and these are our resources. This entire document's in Swedish. Someday I'll run it through translators, but we picked just about the toughest topic you could pick: spinal manipulation technique and its effect on visceral disease. And visceral disease is inner organs. So we did a literature study. We didn't do an experimental study. And so with a literature study, you're basically looking at all the literature that's out there that's related to the topic, and you're chunking that information, and then you put it together. And in order to do a proper study, you have, this is called an abstract, where this is basically a summary. The summary includes your conclusions. You have to have your table of contents, and this is your introduction to the whole subject matter. Everything has to be documented with footnotes. You have the basic problem area of what you're dealing with. You have the goal of the research, and then you have to talk about your method and your approach to study. And then you have to have a model. Heard of that? Model? The model is not the territory. Remember that, right? Just as the map is not the territory, but it's a guideline, and it's something that should be used to help you when doing research. So we created all the model, and then you go through all of these different studies, and you look at how they all intertwine. And our table of content, our what do you call this? The bibliography. We had several books, and these are all articles. I had the good fortune of being able to have access to the library at the Karolinska Institute, which is the top medical college in Sweden. Our school had an affiliation with them. So basically, if you have that kind of an affiliation, you can get any one of these articles for free, and you can get the full text rather than just the abstract. A lot of people like to just read an abstract, make claims about what's in a study, and they've never read the study. Why? Because they don't want to pay 20 or 30 or whatever it is. So it's a whole racket where they're basically controlling the flow of information by keeping all of it in the hands of the people who can afford to go to the universities and have access to these kinds of things. But this study that we did had 4 or 5 pages of bibliography, and these are all studies, and we read all of these, every single one of them in their entirety. And anytime you reference it in any way, even if you're just referencing an idea, you have to have footnotes for it. So I just bring this up because when it comes to the truther community, there's a lot of people who dig into something for a little bit of time, and they think they're experts on it, and then they start making claims, and they claim things as facts, and then they start pointing the finger at other people, saying you're wrong, or calling them out as shills, and it's just irresponsible. It's stupid, and it really makes the person making the claims look stupid. But most of all, if there is such thing as a truther community, it seems to be very fragmented and going in every possible direction all at the same time. Truth should be the guiding light behind it all, right? And looking for truth, not just making decisions about things and then making claims based on what your gut tells you or what you heard from a third-hand resource. So you've got to go back. You've got to check the primaries. That's one of a guy who I listen to a lot, Jan Irvin. He's always talking about the primary sources, because you look into things and it's like, oh, there's a quote, and then it links to something, and then you go to that quote and it links to something else, and you go to that one, and guess what? It links back around, and they're looping around. So it's like a big circle jerk where everyone, you get this little cell of people that are all referring to one another, presenting things as fact, and a lot of their evidence is just bunk. So do your research before you make claims, and don't call people a shill unless you have actual evidence. And there's a lot of that going on right now. One should never go full RV. That's my take on it. So, getting back to the topic at hand, pareidolia. It's the tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation on nebulous stimulus. Those are big words for basically you're looking at something that is not something, but it looks like something, and so then you decide that it is something. And then you make claims about it being something. That's pareidolia. And, all of us have done it at one time or another, And that's one of the biggest claims about my research and my channel, is that that's what I'm doing. I've engaged in probably the most comprehensive and complex case of pareidolia in history. So we're going to have some fun with that in a little bit as we start looking at different images. This is another thing that's basically just another family member of pareidolia, apophenia. Apophenia is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things, right? So there was just a little sound that was made, that little boop, and some of you may recognize that sound. So if a glass had fallen and broken at the same moment that sound went off, and I assumed that the sound caused the glass to break, well, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. Now, if it happens over and over and over again, it's like you pick something up and you drop it. It happens over and over and over again, and then we make claims about what that means. Thanks to Dave Weiss for introducing me to crystal meth. No, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's not crystal meth. These are menthol crystals. It's like the stuff that's in Vicks Vapor Rub. Smells absolutely wonderful. Opens the sinuses. Lasts for months if you don't put it in the sunlight. If you put it in the sunlight, it melts. It turns to liquid, and it's like 10 times more powerful, and it'll burn your skin and it'll burn your eyes. So be careful if you do get this stuff. Wonderful, though. I highly recommend it. Could be a bit addictive, though. Where was I? Where was I? I was talking. Oh, yeah. You lift something up, you drop it. It's like, oh, that's gravity. Or is it gravity? What makes things go down? That's a big question, right? But they do call it the theory of gravity and not the law of gravity, as I understand it. And maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe just because something happens over and over again and there's a correlation. Correlation does not mean causation. If the little bubble goes and the glass breaks and it doesn't happen the next time, I know the two are not related to each other, right? So anyway, this is different, though. This is when you recognize a pattern, right? I showed a video at the very beginning of a bunch of stones being rotated. Those stones, I claim, are petrified organs. Sounds like a crazy idea. Organs can petrify into rock? No way. Well, maybe way. But I'm not about to go out and make a bunch of claims about it without doing literally a shitload of study. And that's what I've done. And going back to the channel here, that's what this video gets into, because I found a stone. I was so annoyed with the mud fossil community, especially Roger, because he's constantly holding up rocks. And he's got his DNA tests on certain ones. He's got 3 DNA tests. They test positive for humanoid DNA. And then he's holding up all kinds of other rocks, and he's looking at stuff on the screen, and he's tapping at the screen. He's making claims about stuff that he's seeing on the screen that he hasn't even held in his own hands, and he's making 100% factual claims about what those things are. And I had a real problem with that, even though I was open-minded enough to give each idea its day in the sun, and to consider maybe there's something to what this guy is saying. It sounds kind of kooky, but who knows? His ideas about paramineralization and how that could happen very rapidly, where whatever the fleshy thing is, or the bones, or whatever, when the creature dies, that it's actually being infiltrated by the mud that's around it and different things, and then that is the mainstream explanation for petrification, if you think of petrified trees, for example. But they're telling us it takes hundreds of years for that to take place. So, but when somebody's holding up something that's just completely, nebulous, and looking around and going, this is this, and they're not there with a pointer and showing you pictures of anatomy and showing you different angles and showing you why it is that, and giving you information that's actually irrefutable, then then they might actually be doing a disservice, because then there's going to be a whole bunch of other people that are going to take that idea and run with it, and every little rock that they bring home, they think is a this, or they think it's a that, and it has to be because, Roger Spur said it was so. So I was open to his ideas. I liked his channel. I watched numerous videos, and I thought he was kind of this kooky old professor that, he was a bit charming, but I didn't like the fact that everything that he said was a matter of fact, and he was so 100% certain about things, and I didn't agree with any of his views on cosmology and the nature of our physical universe. But I decided I wanted to go out, and I sent out a request to the universe, to God, to send me something that was undeniable. And a few days later, I found this rock. And I sent a video. I've said this in probably every interview I've ever done. I sent a video of this rock, me rotating it in 360 degrees, because right off the bat, in just the first few minutes of looking at this rock in the river bottom, I recognized about 8 different anatomical correlations. And then as I started looking at it more, I realized there's more and more. And then I got back and I pulled out my anatomy books, which are over there, which go into great detail about the heart. And I started looking at all the different stuff about the heart, which I knew a lot of it already because of my time in school. And I kept finding more and more stuff. That shouldn't happen, right? If you have a random rock that has bumped against other rocks and rolled around in a river bottom and is abrading, abrasion is happening and water erosion is happening because of the water flow, and mineral content in the water is leaching out minerals in the, then you might get something that looks like something. I mean, you could say that most rocks look like something, right? Some look like kidneys, maybe others look like a spleen, maybe others look like a toe, maybe, but this was way too many specificities. And so when I sent it to him, I thought his jaw was going to drop, because it was better than anything I'd ever seen him show on his channel, and he ignored it. And I couldn't believe it. And I sent him a few more messages. And then I'd already started putting out these videos on the Titan, and approaching the Titan to the best of my ability using the scientific method. I'm just going to pull the scientific method up here for people who aren't familiar with it. The basic idea. There's a lot of infighting in the truther community about the scientific method, because one camp is only like, well, if you don't have a manipulative variable, you don't have a scientific experiment. And that would imply that the only way you can do an experiment is if you can manipulate a variable. And I don't agree with that. There's different ways of coming at truth, and you can without having to conduct a scientific experiment, which is only for measurable stuff anyway, right? The scientific method does not apply to things like spirit, mind, emotion, all of these other ineffable, immeasurable things. So what do? You make observations. What do I see in nature? I saw a mountain. Later on, I saw some rocks that didn't make sense to me, except unless they were biological, from one's own experience. Then you think of interesting questions. Well, what if that mountain doesn't just look like an elephant? What if it really was? And maybe it's not an elephant at all. Maybe it was some other kind of creature. It's hard to tell, but it's got that elephant-shaped head, and there's a cave right where the eye should be. And later I found out there's another cave right where the ear should be. So that's already kind of weird, right? And so then I got on to Google Earth with it, because I played around with Google Earth. And, this is what I go through in the first videos. I was just going to open up Google Earth, but I don't need to do that, because I can... See, this is an article in a local paper showing how it looks like an elephant, right? It's not such a reach. I've had a lot of people go, that doesn't look at all like an elephant. You're an idiot, And it's like, okay, whatever. But let's just see. This is from the very first video. Don't want to blow anybody's ears out here.
I got exposed to the idea of Titans. It wasn't the first time. As a kid, I was exposed to the mythology, the Greek mythologies, and watched this movie, The Clash of the Titans, saw the Kraken get turned to stone by the Medusa's head.
I'm not suggesting
And
that
I
is
ran
a real
across
Kraken.
a couple of videos by Mud Fossils University.
This is what I've
Talking
just
about the
told you,
idea
but
that
basically I wanted to
provide
provide to the
conclusive proof that Titans actually existed, or at the very least, a lot of compelling evidence that will spark curiosity. This is a
Okay, so that's very important. That's it. That's within the first minute of the video. I say conclusive proof that Titans existed, or at least spark some curiosity that it might be a possibility, right? And so this was clickbait, obviously, conclusive proof. I'm not suggesting this is conclusive proof, but at the end I make a joke about it, and I say, well, if you're looking for conclusive proof, here it is. And every single person that came to my channel ignored this, that was mocking me for believing the dumbest thing that a person could possibly believe. So, you know, this is obviously photoshopped, as were the tusks, right? It's like, these are not real tusks, really? You know, obviously there's a bit of tongue in cheek here, but the research is not intended to be tongue in cheek whatsoever.
also known as the elephant.
Yeah, I don't need to go through that. So anyway, and we'll go through some of these other images later. This is the J Dreamers video that really kind of caused me to start wondering. Great video, check that one out. This is a rock a mountain that just looks so humanoid to me. I've yet to see anybody who's gone boots on the ground to go check this thing out. Where is this? There's got to be somebody in the quote-unquote truther community that's somewhere near this thing that can go check it out. There's another one that's lying on its side. You can see here, this is, and we'll get to this, this kind of, the whole Titans lying on their back thing in a little while. But going back to the scientific method again. So you think of interesting questions? Well, my interesting question was, could it be possible? And then I formulated hypotheses. If it is possible, first of all, you've got the mud fossil theory as one possibility. We know that things petrify. There are theories about rapid petrification, and so if you formulate a hypothesis, what are the phenomenon that I'm wondering about? What are the general causes of the phenomenon I'm wondering about? So the causes of the phenomenon. Well, causes is a difficult one, right? Because I can't create an experiment to actually cause a Titan to be petrified, you know. But basically, you formulate hypotheses, and you develop testable predictions. And that's exactly what I did. So let me just check in with all you guys for a moment, because my talking is getting difficult. Yeah, Mount St. Helens, that was something. There's a video by Wakey Wakey, and he included a bit in that video about it's called Geology Revived or Unveiled, I can't remember, I think it's Revived, and he's basically looking at different cornerstones in geology and asking the question, are these built on solid foundations? And what you find out is when you go back to the primaries and you go back to the early days when each of these different ideas like carbon dating and whatnot were introduced, you find out that, oh, guess what? They were hotly contested right from the get-go, and there were people calling them out as being inaccurate and not something that we should be using in that fashion. So, and this is true of many different things in geology. Like, for example, layering. Right, you've got the layers of strata, right? That and the lower the layer, the older the stuff, right? That makes sense, but not necessarily. Not if you consider the possibility that mud floods might be a thing. If you think about volcanic flow, and that's exactly what Wakey Wakey showed in this video. Was this geologist had gone to Mount St. Helens after the eruption had occurred, and they found these entire slurry flows that had been laid down in a matter of hours, where they had micro layering that we're told can only happen over extremely long periods of time as sediment is laid down and compressed. So right off the bat, boom, that one bit of information, it debunked. It doesn't mean that there aren't that there isn't truth to being, that layers of strata, the further down you go, that the older it gets. But it doesn't mean that it's always the case, and that if there are examples of things that step outside of that, we can't just look at that as the gold standard for dating. Gotta breathe once in a while, huh? Sit up straight, follow my own advice that I'm always giving people, the importance of posture, and Tuscan cheek. I love that. Boomer humor. That's what my son told me the other day. I sent him a joke. He's like, "You got such boomer humor." I'm like, I'm not even a boomer. Like my mom's generation. That's the boomer generation. Like I'm Gen X, man. Yeah, my Swedish is fully fluent. By the first year was brutal. Second year I got a little faster. The first year I was there with my little Swedish English dictionary. It was about this big. They let me use it on the tests, and so because sometimes I didn't even know what the question was asking, and so I had to look up words so I could understand the question. And I was always the last person there. That was kind of embarrassing, but I understood. It took me a good hour longer than everybody else that first year. By the final year, I finished the second to last test. I was the first one done, and I had the second highest score on the test. And so Swedish, not a problem for me. And so develop testable predictions. So this is what I did with Montgo. I said, if that's an eye socket, there should be certain features that are in an eye socket, right? If you look at vertebrates, all of the eye sockets among vertebrates are more or less the same. The shape of everything changes depending on the creature, but let's see, there's a great meme here I saw yesterday that I wanted to include. Here we go. Love this. The skull. The artist's depiction, and it's a hippopotamus, right? So anyway, the overall shape of skulls changes dramatically, just like it does with skeletons. But the number of bones, the types of bones, and the kind of the general morphology of the bones is more or less the same. And the eye is very, very specific, and I don't have a picture handy. I'm not going to go looking for it, but there are 7 bones that meet in different places. And those bones, where they meet, it creates suture lines, which is just the meeting point. And then there's also fissures where like the optic nerve goes in and the blood vessels go in. And those fissures are spaces between the bones. So I'd been up at the cave numerous times when I was at Montgo, and this is long before I got onto this research. And so when I went up to look at the cave, before I went up, I got out the anatomy books and I started looking at, okay, these are the different features I would expect to find if there was any truth to this idea. And so I went up and I filmed while I was up there. I took a lot of pictures, and the second video in the Unveiling a Titan series is all about that. And so ironically, the first video I ever made is the video with the most views because it's the first in the series. So even though there's a lot of things about the video that I would change now, that's still the most watched video. So it's kind of frustrating because obviously the ideas and the knowledge has evolved a tremendous amount since I made that video. But that's still a lot of what is the first thing that people see when they come to the channel. So when I went up there that first time, I found 10 or so different specific correlations. So this gets back to the rock I found as well. Like the more specific things I add to the list of I'm looking for this in a rock, the less likely I should be able to find that rock, right? It just makes sense. It's logical, right? And so if I find a rock that's got 25 anatomic coincidences, correlations, right? is that just a rock that looks like a heart, or is it an actual heart? And how big does that list have to get before someone will accept that it's a heart? Well, some people will never accept it until mainstream geology or mainstream science says, yep, he's right about that. Then they'll accept it, right? Or they want something like a DNA test. Is that likely to be successful? I don't know. I haven't bothered. Roger's got 3 DNA tests that he spent a whole lot of money for. He's sent them to every institution that exists, and either they just consider him crazy, or the ideas that he's trying to purvey do not fit into their paradigm, and so they can't go anywhere near it, because if they did, they would start to have to pull at the threads of the tapestry that is geology, and maybe major cornerstones of geology would start to unravel. And you've got tenured professors, PhDs, lots of them, thousands and thousands of geologists around the world with their educations that are all certain about what we call Petrogenesis, which is the creation of stone, all the different ways in which the stone that we see comes about: igneous, metamorphic, sedimentary, right? Metamorphic being compression, melt. The extreme version of that, igneous, magma, underground, pushed up, lava, and then the lava melts, right? And as it melts, it turns into really tall hexagonal columns. No, just kidding. That's bullshit, if you ask me. So mainstream geology, why should I jump through a bunch of hoops? I went through those hoops to some degree with the Heartstone research that I've done. I did this video called An Exciting Research Day, where I was contacted by two guys, or one guy who was friends with another guy who had a laboratory. And the guy who contacted me was an amateur geologist, and he said, oh, sorry, I wasn't showing the screen. Rookie error. There we go, sorry. So this is the video, An Exciting Research Day. I was contacted by a guy. He wanted to know if they could pay me to buy a rock or two that they could do some testing on. I didn't want any money for it. I just wanted the testing. And so I sent them a bunch of rocks that fit this category that I'm calling more of a round petrified heartstones. And in this video, I'm showing the stones that I was going to send them. I'm showing why I believe that each and every one of these is a petrified organ, and then I'm wetting them in the water so you can see the detail better. I'm showing it in relationship to the hearts and why I believe that they're hearts, and how the anatomy matches up, and why it's very, very specific. And that list of specificities means that we should potentially, at least if you're open-minded, be moving away from the category of pareidolia into the category of possibility. Now, the more you add to that list and the more finds you have, the more you might be entering into possibility, and then eventually probability, and then eventually you have what's known as a preponderance of evidence, where you have so much evidence in favor of the theory that it starts to be accepted as a fact, right? Like this is accepted as the fact that gravity exists. So I sent these rocks off in good faith, thinking I was going to get a laboratory analysis back and some data and some numbers and some stuff that we could actually look at and chunk together. And I also have a friend named Lenny who's he's a PhD in molecular chemistry, and he's got different theories about how this rapid petrification could be taking place, and that there's some kind of a transmutation of elements. Maybe it's coming about as a result of a real high power electrical phenomenon. Maybe it's plasma. Maybe it is extreme heat as a result of some kind of major volcanic activity. Maybe it's biblical. Maybe it's the glittering sword of God, as as a guy named Alan from Mud Flood Was Armageddon likes to talk about. If you're a Christian and you're interested in the whole concept of mud fossils, and you want a guy who's in alignment with actual biblical cosmology, which Roger Spur is not. If you read the Bible, I'm not a Christian and I'm not a Bible thumper, I don't know much about it, but I know that there's a lot of references to different things that are in support of the Earth being stationary, non-moving, that sort of thing. So Alan from Mud Flood Was Armageddon. He's the guy to go to if you want to see this stuff from his perspective. He's been at this now for just as long as Roger, if not before. He claims that he was first with the idea. Roger coined the phrase mud fossil, and Alan coined the phrase nephorensics because he's looking at the Nephilim, the fallen angels that mated with the daughters of men and then gave birth to the Titans, and so this is all this mythology that kind of made me go, what if mythology is the real history? They present it to us as fiction, and then everything that they give us that's actually the supposed history is actually the real fiction. Could be, huh? Maybe. So if that's the case, then maybe there's some truth to the Bible or the Book of Enoch or the Book of Jasher, these different sources that talk about things like Titans. Oh, by the way, I just want to send a shout out to Annette. She was the massage therapist of this guy who contacted me, who had found my channel. She knew he was really into geology and thought he would appreciate my channel, and he watched a video or two. I don't know how much he actually saw, and that was when he reached out and contacted me. But Annette saw to it that I got most of these stones back, which I'm appreciative of because a couple of them are real gems. And someday, maybe when the funding is there and people have an interest and there isn't an agenda in place, I'll get some additional testing. What I thought we were going to do was spectroscopy. Spectroscopy is basically, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but basically what it gives you is the molecular constituency of a sample. So it breaks down by percentage point how much of different elements are in your sample. So I figured if there's any kind of transmutation occurring because of high energy, high power, getting back to what I was saying before, then my guess is DNA would in most cases be destroyed. You wouldn't even find it. But what you would find is the same atomic elements present. Now, if transmutation is occurring, then those elements might be going from one thing to something else. But if they do that, they're going to go to something very, very close on the periodic table. So that was why I was hoping for that breakdown, because then I could give that information to Lenny, because I'm not qualified to even make sense of any of those numbers. I could give that to Lenny, and as he's looking at it, he might be like, well, these are the same, these are the same. Oh, this one here is just one atom or one whatever away from this one. So, then you might, that's where you might start being able to get into some kind of an actual proof that would be accepted by mainstream science. In the meantime, what we have to go on is what I consider to be a preponderance of evidence. That was the first rock. That's the one I sent to Roger from Mud Fossils University. And just right there, there's already, from this view alone, there's a whole bunch of anatomical correlations. This is the coronary artery, this is the coronary sulcus, this is the fat between the left atrium and the left ventricle, this is the openings to the pulmonary arteries, this is the isthmus that goes between them. You can see the remains of the papillary muscles right there, which are the muscles that open the valves. If you go inside with endoscopic camera, which I did in this video, in this video here, Mud Fossils, A Heart of Matter Part 1, I went in with an endoscopic camera. So you see inside, and there are all these bumps that look exactly like trabecular carne. The inside of blood, the vessels of the inside of the chambers of the heart is not smooth. You'd think it'd be like the inside of the mouth or something. Not at all. It's all bumpy with this kind of like bumpy muscular material called trabecular carne. And then there's also other little openings that go between the quote unquote chambers. They're not chambers exactly, but those openings you can see on the endoscopic camera as well. So that one stone has 25 anatomic correlations. That's a big number. Like if I have a harp-shaped stone and I make a claim that it's a rock, people are going to call me crazy, right? But if I have a stone with 25 anatomical correlations and I'm showing image by image how those correlate, isn't that some scientific study? Isn't that investigation? Isn't that me applying the scientific method? Well, not if you go to somebody like Simon Dan, who's got a video that he made about my channel that got over 200,000 views. And basically, he's just mocking me from the get-go, and he doesn't address a single aspect of any aspect of my research. At one point, he even shows a list of, at that time, I think it was about 40 anatomical correlations on the mountain. And he picks one of those correlations, claims it can't be true because he stopped the video at a particular angle and says, see how the eye is right next to the edge of the mountain? That's not where the eye is on an elephant, so it couldn't possibly be true. And this idea is so stupid, I'm not even going to bother with the other 39, right? Oh, this is the guy who's wrapping himself in the cloak of scientific credibility. He's the guy who's the champion for the scientific method, and we have to protect the world from these crazed flat earthers who don't know thing one about science, or people like Stellium who thinks that the mountain is an elephant. And he just did one a few days ago on a video that my friend Howard did. Howard is a friend of mine local who's done a lot of work in the field as well, gathering stones. And I've got a video of his on my channel called where is it? Heartstones on Parade. It's one of the more recent ones. These are in reverse order. Heartstones. So where is it? Slicing heartstones. Here I broke them open. I polished them so we could see if there's any anatomical features present inside. You can see that one to find out if there are. Spoiler, there are. Right? So I've sliced them. I've gone into the field. I've broken them open. Some of them are very, very bloody when you break them open. That's interesting. Bloody. Is it blood, or is it just like this white stone encapsulated, and then as you go deeper and deeper, it gets more and more red? Maybe that's because it was blood once upon a time, or flesh. Yeah. So that's Howard there. This is a video of his. When I posted that, it got more views than any of the videos on my channel had gotten. And then I've got one, I can't find it right now, but it's Heartstones on Parade. And I'm just going through his personal collection, and showing how the things that he's managed to find match up exactly with what I'm finding. And I've had people send me these stones from all around the world. And like I said at the very beginning of this live stream, there's a Telegram channel that you can go to now. You can post your findings. Some of them are absolutely amazing. Some people have found stones that are nicer than what I found. Yeah. So anyway, so I sent. I didn't send this one. No way I was going to send that to those guys. I sent these other ones, and. Yeah, I got back basically opinions is what I got back, and I got zero scientific study whatsoever. It was absolutely shocking. The guy who owns the laboratory he's a very, very prestigious person in the field. He's given talks at the Explorers Club, which is like the creme de la creme of explorers, the first to go to the North Pole, the first to the South Pole, the first to walk on the moon, if you believe in that bullshit, the first to, go to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and blah blah blah. He's a very, very well respected scientist, and not by me. and with good reason. So in order to address the claims that were made, there's about 90 minutes worth of telephone calls that took place. The first half is between me and the guy who originally contacted me, Harry Hubbard. He's got a channel of his own. He's a supposed truther. He and I spoke, and that entire conversation is in there. And so for the whole conversation, I'm offering visuals for everything that's being said. So if you don't get hung up on Latin terminology and feel like, oh no, I don't understand this stuff, it's too complex for me. It's not. The stuff that they're saying sounds complex because it's the Latinification of everyday language, right? It's like a medical trick. You go to a medical doctor, you say, Doc, I got this awful lower back pain, and it's in my buttock, and it's going down my leg, and I'm starting to lose sensation. He'll tell you, you have lumbago with sciatica and paresthesia. And you're like, oh my God, what's that, Doc? Oh, that's pain in your lower back that's in your buttock that's going down your leg, and it's starting to affect your sensation. Oh, really? Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks for letting me know. I didn't know that. That's the truth of the matter. It's like there's all this Latin terminology. I understand the need for it also because, you've got multiple different languages, and there's got to be this kind of uniform language that can be used by people around the world in order to express these ideas with each other. But when it comes to the patient and the layman, it should be presented in a way that they can understand, not confounding them so that they can't make any good decisions for themselves when it comes to matters of their own health, right? That's the thing. If you're going to discern and make good choices, you need good information, and you need to do your own research, and you can't just rely on the high priests of scientism with their cloaks of credibility who are making claims about things that oftentimes are not even substantiated to state their case. And then when you dig into those kinds of people, you find that usually they're the ones that are the most guilty of using fallacious reasoning. Ad hominem attacks, where they go after the person. Oh, he's not credible. He's got no background in this stuff. He doesn't know anything. He's not an expert. They'll appeal to ridicule, right? They laugh it off, because if they laugh at your argument, they don't have to address your argument, because that's so stupid, we don't even have to address it. Like Simon Dan does in every friggin' video the guy has ever made. What a dick. I'm sorry for the bad language, but absolute prick. Sorry. Anyway, this stream is not for children, and I clicked the not for children thing, right? So if I want to use a foul word once in a while, I will. Anyway, boy, oh boy, got on a rant there, sorry. Let's check in with everybody. People still here? Yes. So, best adult dating site. Oh, that was the first thing I saw. Great. In case you need that. Inductively coupled plasma test. That sounds very interesting. All right. Smaller elephants, larger elephants. Yeah, I'm generally of the mind that that our universe, our world is fractal in nature, and that as you go up and up and up, and you get a greater and greater macro view, you're going to see a repeating of themes. So I wouldn't be surprised if continents or the world itself was perhaps a being. And then as you go down, you're going to have 900-mile long dragons in the Sahara potentially. That would be a fractal level up from Mont Go, which is roughly 3 miles long, 2.5, 3 miles long. So if you go up a fractal level from that, then maybe you've got like the kind of stuff that people are finding, in the Sahara. My friend Mike found a 1,500-mile long dragon out in the Pacific, right next to, or not far from Hawaii. So if you go on Google Earth, you can see that, and it's got the plumes coming off of it. It's just like, are they messing with us, or is that really what it looks like underwater? And if it is, man, oh man. I sound just like Alan with no God. Well, that's bullshit, because I believe in God, I would consider myself to be a God-fearing person, just because I'm not a Christian and I don't believe, I don't have a belief about the Bible because I've never read it. And even if I were to read it, I'm already well aware that there are tons of different versions of it. And I'm aware of the Council of Nicaea and the fact that books have been thrown out and the apocryphal texts are not there anymore. I'm also aware of the fact that there are people that have grown up with preachers as parents and have lived their whole life in the church and have studied these texts their whole life, and they're still in conflict and debate with all the other factions that are within Christianity. You know, these are Christians arguing with themselves about these things. So how could I, at 50 plus, enter into that world and ever be able to discern fact from fiction, truth from lies? And so then ultimately it's just going to be me following my gut intuition, which is kind of what I'm doing anyway as I go through life. So to say that I have no God is an insult. And I'm very much believe in a creator. I believe we're in a created realm. Psyop man Dan, yeah. Yeah, flat Earth philosophy, flat Earth. I'm a globe skeptic, big time. I don't believe anything that comes out of NASA, and I've never felt any motion. I've never seen or perceived any curvature, and I don't mean from the ground or from an airplane. I mean with long-distance photography. Done it myself. I've seen 200 meters of Ibiza from 60 miles away that I shouldn't be able to see. It should be hidden behind some kind of a curve. So there doesn't seem to be any discernible curvature. There doesn't seem to be any discernible motion. So, mainstream science is trying to teach us that, well, it's too big, you're not feeling it. It's all spinning, but there's no 1,000 miles an hour winds at the equator. Why is that? Because the atmosphere is magically velcroed to the Earth as it's turning. Okay, so the atmosphere is velcroed to the Earth, and we don't get these shearing winds as the Earth turns. But what about storm systems? They're like spiraling in opposite directions, and So I would say look into it because look in what is it? Eddie Bravo always said, look into it. Look into it. All right, still looking. So, yeah, thank you all for being here. Hey, Campbell from Autodidactic, nice to see you. I went on his show some weeks back. Had fantastic conversations with him. I posted another conversation with him that I had on Iron Realm Media. I haven't posted the one that I did on his channel yet, but I will. But you can find it there also. Dr. Maniac Vons, Simon Fraser, Frank, welcome everybody. Yeah. And how does gas pressure exist next to a vacuum without a barrier? Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to take offense. I thought you meant I was a godless man, because that is an insult. When it comes to... I went with my friend Alex to Denver to the Flat Earth International Conference. And someday I'll do a video about that, because I've got so much awesome footage. But so in that conference, I watched Rob Skiba, rest his soul. Fantastic man that I had the opportunity to meet and really liked. Talked to him a little bit. He did a debate with somebody, Sungenis. I can't remember his first name. Robert Sungenis, perhaps? And Sungenis was arguing in favor of geocentrism, but so that the Earth is actually a globe, but that it's not moving. And that debate was incredibly interesting. It's still online. If you go to the FEIC channel, you can find it. It was like watching two, Jedis battle it out over the Bible when it comes to different verses. And I just realized as I was sitting there, like, I'm never, ever, unless I'm using my intuition, going to ever be able to discern anything true about the Bible and know it to be fact. I already believe we're in a created realm. I already believe in a God. And, whether Jesus was a real man or a metaphor for how we should all be trying to live our lives, I don't know. But I think everybody should honor each other's beliefs. You don't have to believe what other people believe. You don't have to throw them under the bus because they don't believe what you believe. And in the words of Rodney King, can't we all just get along? Or has that been Mandela affected? I can't remember. Not Professor Dave. What a joke that guy is. How he even has the gall to call himself a professor is beyond me. He's there trying to be the champion of... we're all professors anytime we claim something to be true because we're professing our beliefs. So in that sense, everybody's a professor, right? So it's kind of a meaningless word. But obviously, on a YouTube channel, when you see the word professor in front of their name, you would assume that they kind of have some kind of an academic background, and that guy is a bloody joke. Anyway. And again, him, Simon Dan, these other guys that are supposedly taking down the flat earthers left and right, they're the most guilty of engaging in fallacious reasoning of everybody out there. And that's not my opinion, that's just a fact. They are the worst. But because they've got the mainstream backing them and they're championing the mainstream narratives on everything, literally, those guys don't know how to think for themselves one bit. They think that they're right, and that gives them the right. They're probably just paid. They're probably paid shills, because, how can anybody be that much of an idiot? Unless they are paradigm blind, they're in a state of severe cognitive dissonance, because if they start to admit that they might be wrong about this, that, or the other thing, literally their entire reality would start to unravel. Anyway, so I sent this off to those guys, and then in order to address their claims, I had to do it point by point. It took me 3 hours to do. The video is right here. It's called Paradigm Crushed, Full Disclosure. It's got every word spoken by them and me in our exchanges and the emails, and it makes for very, very, very interesting watching. So even though it's super long, if you're interested in the scientific method and you're also open-minded and curious about all of these different avenues of investigation that people are engaging in that might actually be correct, but might be completely wrong because people just, jump the gun too soon when it comes to believing things, then this is a great video. And the reason I spent so much time on it is because they literally addressed every single possible criticism. Well, maybe not everyone, but all of the major criticisms that have been levied against my channel by people in the comments streams, by videos that have been made about me. They've addressed every single one of those things in one way or another in their dialogue. And so I've addressed how every single one of their criticisms is actually false, based on what mainstream geology tells us about what they're claiming the stones are, and also based on what my evidence has shown, which completely contradicts that. And guess what? They didn't address my evidence at all. Nothing about the Heartstones. They just towed the line on every aspect of the mainstream narrative. So if you want to learn a lot about the scientific method, how I've applied it, and why I think it's important, and why I believe that I've been engaging in the scientific method from the beginning, then that's the one to watch. Took me about 6 weeks to make. And, and again, so this is about truth or discernment. So I have also had to backtrack on several things that I've believed and that I've claimed were true. And we're going to get to those in a minute. So, all right. Yeah, I don't believe in evolution either. I think it's a crock of you-know-what. And the Bible isn't about reading and letting God show you. Isn't about reading and letting you. Bible isn't about reading and letting God show you His truth. It isn't. Well, one of the things that I think is really interesting about the Bible is a lot of that book is all about this, what I'm talking about right now. It's about, how to spot lies, all the different ways in which society can be taken over with the wrong kinds of ideas, and, teaching people about natural law, which I very much believe in, and, and so a lot to be said for the Bible, tremendous amount of truth in there, and the more you dig into it, you find out, there's also all of these different sites around the world that seem to kind of match up with things that are written in it. So, I don't know. University. A lot of people are throwing university under the bus as a big indoctrination system, and I definitely learned a whole lot of stuff I no longer believe, but it all depends. If you're studying physics and or chemistry, or it's not all university education is wrong, but you got to go into it all. And I did this from the beginning with my chiropractic education. Go into it questioning everything they were telling us, and I did that from first week of classes. I was already there asking the uncomfortable questions for the teachers because they were making claims about the early days of chiropractic, and I was aware that some of those things that they were saying weren't necessarily true. All right, so apophenia. This is what they would be saying I have done with the heart stones, that I have recognized a pattern that doesn't exist. That's similar to pareidolia, where you see something and you think it's a something, but it's not really a something. But this is more broad because you're recognizing what you think is a pattern. Like I was saying before, the little blop sound and the glass breaking. That's apophenia. So I don't believe that I've engaged in that at all. But it's very important to know. This is another big one that they throw at me a lot, the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Guess what? I'm not a geologist. Full disclosure from the very first video I ever made on the subject. Not a geologist. I've never studied it, and at this point, I'm not interested in studying it because I believe a lot of what mainstream geology is presenting is bogus, and I'd rather look at what's around me and study things on my own. And I'm not going to claim that unequivocally that they're facts, but I'm going to tell you my opinions. And every once in a while, I slip up and I talk about the heart stones as this is a heart stone. I still, even with all the ones I've gathered and all the videos I've made, I still sometimes doubt myself. Somebody a couple weeks ago was like, "Hey, couldn't they be shark teeth?" Right? And I thought, shark teeth, regular teeth, it can't be a molar, right? There's no way it can be a molar because they don't look anything like molars. But if you look at I think I pulled it up already here, shark teeth, these don't look anything like the heart stones that I presented. Even if they were to wear out, they've got a little bit of a curve there and they're wearing, but there's no difference between this part of the stone and this part of the stone. And all throughout these videos, I've shown suture lines, which you could say, oh, these are suture lines, but you notice how these are coming straight down? Well, these can curve a little bit. I suppose they could be teeth. And if it turns out they're teeth, it's still a friggin' monumental discovery. And this is the frustration I had. Even if I'm wrong about my claims with the hearts, those guys should have been really, really interested in my research and what I presented, because even by their own admission, they started calling them heart-shaped stones. They referred to them as HSSs for short. They even said, he could write some papers and he could talk about the heart-shaped stone phenomenon. They don't believe they're hearts at all, but I've definitely recognized a very reoccurring, repeatable pattern in the stones that, based on mainstream geology's take on things, should not be the case, because if it's just random banging around, why are we getting these very, very specific stones with very specific features, and then we have a bunch that look like eggs and discs and other things that look absolutely nothing like that? If some part of the erosion process is making them into that shape, shouldn't they all more or less be going through that same kind of erosion? That's that's my thought about things. So yeah, these to me don't look at all like these harp-shaped stones that I've made a lot of videos about. And decide for yourself though. Don't take my word for it, and go out and find them. Yeah, and if you look at human molars, you see these. There are lines in the molars when you look at them, right? You've got these lines going down, but none of the heart stones have this big, like, 4-part edge to them. So that, if you're going to be honest, you have to recognize, wow, that idea, I hadn't considered it, and maybe it's actually true. So that's why I don't think that these are teeth that I've found. But if they are teeth, it's still pretty darn cool. So yeah, so I sent those off to them. Close that one. And back to Dunning-Kruger Effect. So this is basically where somebody's studied something for a little bit of time, and all of a sudden they think that they're an expert. Cognitive bias, whereby people with low ability, expertise, or experience regarding a certain type of task or area of knowledge tend to overestimate their ability or knowledge. With me in geology, definitely. And I've been confronted by geologists who claim, like, for example, with the mountain, I'm talking about the limestone that's around the mountain being if you look at bone, you've got the long bones that have the outer portion of the bone is long and hard and smooth. And inside the bone, it looks like Swiss cheese, and that's where the blood is produced. And the Swiss cheese is, that was another thing. So this was a big mind blow for me when I first started looking into limestone. First paragraph on Wikipedia about limestone, after I'd already started to come up with these theories. And it's interesting because there's no reference to this kind of limestone that I'm showing. There are no pictures anywhere of this Swiss cheese limestone, and they're not addressing it anywhere on the Wikipedia page, which I think is kind of fascinating. They talk about different kinds of limestone. They talk about karst. This definitely looks like it laid down potentially in layers, but guess what? Bone grows in exactly the same way. So I'll show you that in a second. But it's a common type of carbonate sedimentary rock, which is the main source of material lime. It is composed mostly of minerals, calcite, aragonite, which are different. Wait a minute. Have they changed the page? Oh no, here. Okay, I thought they changed the Wikipedia page. So they have edited. It has been edited though. The accumulation of corals and shells, and basically they've been compressed for millions and millions of years. So going back to the geologist who was criticizing me, wasn't showing the screen again. Through biological processes such as the accumulation of corals, shells, endoskeletons, mollusk, all compressed. Well, guess what bone is made of? Limestone. Or wait, no, limestone is made of bone. Or is it the other way around? I don't know. That was fascinating because I was looking at this rock going, this doesn't make any sense based on what they tell us about water erosion. So let's see here. Dunning-Kruger Effect plus Stockholm Syndrome equals Karen. Don't forget cognitive dissonance, because then they get really angry and they want to like hurt you. But absolutely, yeah. So you think you know a lot more than you do, and then as you dig into it, you find out, oh, maybe I don't know so much after all. And so this is the thing, that the it's usually measured by comparing self-assessment with objective performance and participants in the study. My friend Alex, he's an incredible singer, and he told me early on that I don't have a singing voice, and he tried to make that clear. Before he created the Flat Earth Man character, we did 2 songs together where I wrote the lyrics and I did the singing. This is long before the character had been created, and I sang on it. And he, it wasn't auto-tune like Cher uses, but basically he was way better than auto-tune. He went in note by note and helped me stay on key. And even then, I've got I don't have a powerful voice and I can't hit the high notes. And I had a birthday party last week, and we did a karaoke night, and so I got to wait. I'll just bring up some pictures. This is him. Everyone here probably knows him. We went out one night, and he says, as we're trying to contemplate spherical objects over a flat plane, because we were shooting pool. Isn't it funny? I thought, wow, shouldn't the pool table be a ball, because those balls are on the surface? I don't know. It's kind of weird, but. And then we spotted this guy over here. That was kind of funny. And the other day we had a wonderful karaoke session, and I literally butchered numerous songs. And so that's Alex. We've had some great get-togethers in the last few weeks with some other like-minded people coming to town. Not the best picture, but. We walked into the apartment they were renting, and this was on the wall. I couldn't help but smile. This is Dave Manel from the Trinities, is their YouTube channel. He's a flat Earth activist, goes around talking to people. He was on the Globe Light tour, and got some great friends. Very open-minded and funny. None of us believes the same thing about anything. Oh wait, I didn't show any of the pictures. That's a rookie maneuver again. All right, so I'm just going to leave it on that that one, so I don't keep doing this. So how long have we been going? You guys, should we keep going? Are you guys enjoying this? Let's see the chat. Yeah, so that's Dave Manel. This was when I walk in, the first thing I see is that on the wall. I thought, how's that for perfect? And so, especially when you consider the research I've done on that. And this is our karaoke evening. And I got to reprise my role that I took on for Alex's video, where I played the bartender, and no longer a NASA fan though. And so anyway, that was fun. I've got some clips, but I won't torture anybody with my singing. This is what I was talking about, contemplating spherical objects over a flat plane, and then we spotted this guy here. And so Dunning-Kruger Effect is something that we also need to be aware of. And then another accusation is that this is what I'm constantly doing. I'm cherry-picking my evidence. Now, if you think about me going out and picking rocks that look a particular way, that is cherry-picking by definition. And so this is why I've done these extensive videos showing why I don't believe it's cherry picking. Because if I have that rock and it's got this feature, this feature, this feature, and this feature, and this, and it just keeps going on, then it's like, whoa, maybe there's something to this. Now I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty interesting. If that's true, then maybe this is some kind of a phenomenon. Maybe hearts actually can petrify, and somehow be found outside of the body. That's a big one that maybe I'll come back to again, that comes up almost every time I make a video. How are they found outside the body? Very simple. I believe the body is being destroyed while they're hardening. And why would they harden? I think it's like, I call it boiled egg theory. I think that the inner organs are literally being boiled as the outer portion of the body is being destroyed. And then that hardening, it gets harder and harder the more heat and the more pressure you have, like a pressure cooker. And in a pressure cooker, bones will dissolve and turn to gelatin. So that's why I believe that the outer portions of the body, the head, fat, everything will melt down to a jelly-like substance. And so I believe that as that process is happening, the inner organs are hardening to the point where by the time the rest of the body is done, they've hardened enough to be outside the body and to remain as stones. And maybe they're not stones initially, maybe they become stones later. But if I go out into the field and I can find in the space of a short amount of time, which I've also done in another video called some Heartstone field work, right? Because that's what it is. It's field work. I'm going out, I'm testing my hypothesis, going back to that scientific method loop. I'm testing my hypothesis. There we go again. And I went out in this video and filmed myself live and gathered a bunch of stones, and then showed this is a reoccurring pattern that occurs with great frequency, at least in this region of the world and in some other regions as well, because many other people, like I said, have sent me stones. So yeah, it's cherry picking, but cherry picking by necessity, because if I grab a bunch of rocks that look like kidneys and hold those up and say, these are kidneys, people are going to be like, and that's an idiot, that's a fool, that's a crazy person. I do have a bunch of kidneys that I'll make a video on soon, because it'll be a very easy video because they're not very complicated. But guess what? They have the kidney shape, they have a little indentation. Well, kidney is a complete enclosure except for right where the blood vessels enter and exit, and the nerves, everything goes in right through that little indentation. But there's more to a kidney than that, and I'll show that. So yeah, I have engaged in cherry picking, but it has been in good faith for the intention of illustrating that this is a very, very repeatable phenomenon. So cherry picking may be committed intentionally or unintentionally. So, some people go out with the best of intentions and they're certain about something because they're suffering from Dunning-Kruger Effect and pareidolia, and they find something and they think it is a particular thing, and then they start making conclusions about it. So one of my subscribers sent me a picture to this place here. This is called Sleeping Elephant Mountain. And yeah, it kind of looks like an elephant. And it almost looks like there might be potentially a cave here, possibly. So that would definitely be something to explore if you were in the area. If you're not doing boots on the ground stuff, if all you're doing is looking at Google Earth and making claims, or looking at pictures on the internet and making claims, you're not doing research. You're just being foolish. And the more claims that you make that are wrong, the more stupid you make the supposed truther community. So yeah, be cautious with that. It's okay to have fun with pareidolia and to look at things. I do it all the time. Somebody sent me this video here, and that looks a heck of a lot like a skull, right? It's like you got the mouth opening, and this looks like an eye socket, and are those teeth? But it's all the same material, it looks like, at least from the air. So to say, oops, sorry, to say that is a skull is, you don't want to make that claim until you've actually got some boots on the ground investigation. You can cite it as an example of how far out the terrain of the world can be, and that there may be titans that are buried in the world. I encourage people to do that. Go on YouTube, look at this stuff, but then if it's something near you, go out and do more than just make a video and start claiming. And when people start to zoom out on this stuff, sometimes you see things that look like tissue or the skin of an elephant or all kinds of different stuff. if you're not going deeper than that, you're not actually doing research. You're just playing with pareidolia. And you could be right and you could be wrong. So, and on that note, that gets into, this has taken everybody by storm, all this debate between Ewar and, or not debate, but conversations between Ewar and Wood and Nichols. And this is what I talked about with truth or discernment. People are throwing Ewar under the bus as a shill, as a paid agent, that he was just brought in to make the community look foolish because he engaged in all of these things, pareidolia and Dunning-Kruger effect, and drew these conclusions about the Tartarian buildings and this ancient civilization that supposedly existed all over the realm. And the more he dug into it, the more he found that he had made claims about things that weren't true. And I did the exact same thing. I did an interview with Santos Bonacci a few years ago, and it was just an audio interview. And we were talking about Tartaria, and he was talking about a place called Gympie in Australia or New Zealand. I can't remember which that he had been on, and he'd been looking at all these buildings. And we were both making all of these statements about this stuff, that they couldn't possibly have built it even with today's technology. We couldn't build it, or they had no roads and all of this stuff. And while some of that may be true, as soon as you state something as fact, if you find information that goes against that fact, and I promise you, if I find information that goes 100% against the mountain or against these heartstones, I will share it with you. In fact, when I on my channel, the reason I did this video before I sent those stones off is because I committed fully to the experience. Here, this exciting research day, I'm like, these are the stones, this is where I'm sending them, these are who these guys are, I'm going to get some results, and then we'll look at them, and we'll go through them together, right? I didn't try and bury the information after they got back to me. And when they got back to me, I made this video because I didn't agree with just about everything they said. And I'm also willing to admit I may still be wrong. Don't take my word for all of this stuff. I'm just exercising I'm engaging in intellectual curiosity and yeah. So, unfortunately my watch time average on videos is like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something for the whole channel. So you make a 3-hour video, it's 20% of the people that will actually watch the whole video. So 1 in 5 will even watch it. So the importance of intellectual honesty. And so, people are throwing Ewar under the bus. When his stuff came out, there was nothing novel about it. He was talking about Antiquitech and the fact that the buildings with their organs, they might have been healing centers, they might have been channeling energy from the ether. I still believe they were. That's my belief based on a whole ton of information. I was part of a small group of researchers, affectionately known as the Recent Tartarians. We met on a Discord. Andreas Exertus and another guy started the Discord. I met a guy named Mike, who calls himself 13th Monkey, who was looking into the star forts, and boom, 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 all these ideas just started blowing my mind about our history. And like I said, I studied classics. I studied in Italy. I lived in Italy for 3 years. I lived in Rome for 2 and went all around a lot of these buildings. And when I started to think about, like, wait a minute, yeah, how did they do these things? And how did they find rose-colored and green-colored marble, and like they're columns that are smooth as glass, that are just absolutely perfect. And I didn't know anything about scagliola. I just learned about that from Paul Cook about a month ago. And it's basically it's a clay, that they make to look like marble, and then they wrap it around things, and then they had a way of setting it to stone. That way is not talked about, but that's, now everything is. Everyone's talking about geopolymers and our ability to synthesize a whole lot of stuff that we didn't realize was possible long ago. And the deeper that Paul Cook goes down with his boots on the ground investigation, the more he finds massive megalithic geopolymer blocks. And I challenge anyone to watch 10 of his videos and come back to me and say, those aren't geopolymers. Because I guarantee you they are. Those are blocks. They have not been carved and set. That's been poured. And I'm not saying that everything out there has been poured, because there's a lot of native stone that's been quarried and it's been put in buildings, but there's a whole lot of stuff that's being passed off by the ancient aliens and the Egyptian archaeology community as stuff that's been hewn from stone, and it's just bullshit. Like Saskatchewan, or however you pronounce it in Peru, like, how did they get those stones up there? It makes way more sense that they were poured. And if you look behind them, you find all this other rubble-like stone that's also geopolymer. There was a video 2 years ago. I saw a 2-part series on geopolymers by Observation Deck was the name of the channel. He was looking at all the old literature talking about it. So this is knowledge that's been obfuscated. And when I was a student, I traveled in Greece, and I went to Athens, and I went to the National Museum there. And in the National Museum, there was this one case that I just never forgot about, because they had these vases that were made out of diorite. If you look at the hardness scale, diorite is 1 below diamond. And these vases were these delicate, narrow vases that came up and then had narrow necks and lips that came out. And it said right on the little plaque, like, we have no idea how they made these things, right? They had to have been using, at the very least, diamond blades, or, have it on a lathe and be carving with diamond. But that theory goes out of the water when you have a when you have a narrow neck and the diamond blade can't get inside to hollow out the thing, right? So to me, already, I'm like, that looks like it was thrown on a potter's wheel, because I actually did pottery when I was in my teens, and you put the clump on there and you hold it in place and the wheel is spinning and you get it into the perfect shape, and then you can shape it and you can make these delicate structures, and then you put it in a kiln and you harden it, and then it's a completely different material. Geopolymer, same idea. That's what concrete is. That's what they're using for fillings nowadays, except it's plastics. It's still a polymer. They have it, it's soft, and then eventually they hit it with the UV light and it sets, and within a couple of minutes they've set the thing to the point where you can start to chew on the tooth. And before, like, if you had an amalgam filling, you had to wait. They're like, oh, don't eat for the rest of the day or something like that. And now you can eat in minutes after the fact, because the technology is improved. Well, there was a guy named Girolamo Segato who knew how to do this with human bodies. Girolamo Segator, who knew how to do this with human bodies over a century ago. And I remembered that time, good. Girolamo Segato. And he did all kinds of gruesome things with flesh, turning it to stone. And there was another guy named, I think it was Giordano Bruni, also an Italian. You can find examples of petrified brain, petrified everything, and this isn't a conspiracy theory. These are still found in museums to this day. This is a cerebellum. This is a hand. So just because we don't know what they did before doesn't mean they couldn't do it before. And I really wish that people weren't attacking Ewar, because maybe he is a shill. He came out of nowhere. He doesn't show his face. He's got that theatrical voice that some people love. My son, who's almost 19, he just absolutely loved the Ewar stuff. And it was great because Ewar did what nobody else had done. He gathered in all of these different research threads and put it together in a really aesthetically appealing theatrical fashion, and presented these ideas. Almost none of those ideas were new to me because of this research community that I'd already been involved with. We were doing live streams called the Chlorifix chats, these guys who were just independent researchers were uncovering all kinds of amazing stuff. Well, at one point, and this goes back to my conversation with Santos Bonacci, we were talking about the World's Fairs, and I was saying that there is absolutely no way that St. Louis and Chicago and San Francisco, that these buildings were made from wood, because I lived in Rome and I knew what was involved in the production of, or not involved, but I'd been all over, inside and to the top of St. Peter's Cathedral numerous times. That building was on par with, if you go to St. Louis World's Fair. This isn't news to this community now, because people have been digging into the World's Fairs. But, when I saw this building, I'm like, there's no way in hell something that big. Look at the size of the people there. Like little tiny dots. There's no way in hell this is made out of wood. It would collapse under its own weight, right? Like they say about my Titan also. They say that about Montgo. There couldn't possibly have been Titans. They're way too big because they would have collapsed under their own weight. And I mean, like, you mean the weight of gravity? Like, which gravity do you mean? Do you mean mass attracting mass from Newton? Or do you mean warpage of space-time from Einstein? Or is it possible that the electrostatic attraction is actually more powerful than gravity, and maybe there's no problem with things being really, really, really big and collapsing under their own weight, because the way we think about gravity isn't actually what gravity or things going down really is, right? Now, I'm not a physics expert, but I know enough to know that LIGO was a bunch of BS. A one-time measurement of a supernova, and then they're claiming that they've proven gravitational waves because they managed to luckily catch a fluctuation in space-time that was 1,000th the width of a proton. And then they're claiming that they've proven gravitational waves. Like, there couldn't be any anomalies in the instrumentation that might have given you that? No, that's not it. We've proven gravity, right? And then they awarded the Nobel Prize for that. And that was when I really lost faith in the Nobel Committee. I figure they're gatekeepers. They're just promoting narratives that, they want people to believe. So anyway, I brought up the World's Fairs because a friend of mine who was on the Discord, Eugenie, got a website from someone else who was on there. It's your girl Kathy, and she had found one of these archives that Wooden Nichols has now done a bunch of videos and gone through. I don't think he had done any of them. His videos on the World's Fairs, showing the actual construction photos, not ladder layer photos where it looks like the backgrounds have been photoshopped out, but actual foundation laying, every single stage of the production of these buildings in high definition photos. So those people who made those claims, and I was one of them, they were wrong, right? These buildings were made, maybe not all of them, because we've still got all those big Capitol buildings and big libraries and big sanitariums and all that stuff all around the realm, but at least the narrative that everyone was pushing as fact, about the World's Fairs, wrong. It's false, right? And so instead of people accepting that and sucking it up and doing a little research, it's much easier to say, Ewar, he flip-flopped, he's a shill, and he's he's one of them, and the whole point was to mislead people about this. And I thought his whole point from the beginning was to try and synthesize what was a major confusing mishmash of stuff that you would have to spend hundreds, if not 1,000 or more hours sifting through to start to make sense of it. And so I applaud what they're doing. Their recent conversations are really interesting. And here he's talking about, like, this one was great. He's got the
in this video
going back to these this idea of these sculptures couldn't possibly have been carved from stone because they're too complex. Well, this guy, he's doing it. They're showing every stage of production. So maybe he's using geopolymers. Maybe he's using the same techniques. But, it doesn't look like it. It looks like he carved it. This is... It's very interesting stuff. So these are artists to look into. I've seen this statue with my own eyes, and look at this. This is rope, and you can see the spiral, the twisting of the rope. And when I first learned about geopolymers from observation tech, I was like, that's how they're doing these things. It's obvious. And the fact that there's no veins whatsoever in the marble, they just happen to find the absolute perfect stone that doesn't have the slightest vein anywhere. And then this laying on top, it's a different color. How does that work, right? It's got to be geopolymer. But it doesn't mean that a person can't carve something, out of stone today that, is magnificent and incredibly detailed. There's a thing called the Gypsoteca in the Gypsoteca, sounds just like it sounds, Gipsoteca, of Palladio, who was a supposed great architect in Italy. And I went to this thing, and they had all of the models for the statues before they became models, and those models were carved out of chalk. And they had all of these little nails that were tapped in, and those nails were used for measurement, and there were all kinds of mathematical calculations so that you didn't have to chip away at the stone to get rid of major portions of it. You could fracture it to get rid of the big chunks, so then you could get closer and closer and closer with more and more detail on what you're working on. And that's very interesting stuff that I've seen with my own eyes. So yeah, do your homework and your research before you start calling people out as shills. And that goes for everybody in this community. And that's why I did the video that I did on the jet fuel hoax, not because I know anything about that, but I just know that it's a hot potato, and that a lot of people are making claims about things that they really don't know anything about. In another Discord, there's a guy who's an engineer, high-level engineer working with structural integrity of extremely important materials when it comes to, massive machines that, like, the slightest hairline fracture would destroy the whole machine. And they've got all these techniques that are used for penetrance, for looking at the lines. And a big shout out to you, Ahura. Thank you for all that you've done, helping me, because he's sent me a lot of information. Some of it I've made use of. But he went in and he put in all the numbers in CAD from the specifications that are given by Boeing that are available to the public for download, and then showed that, guess what? The volume that they're claiming those wings hold in the biggest of the Boeings, that he did it on the big one, actually matches what CAD comes up with when you put in the numbers. So he's showing that the volume is what they say. Now, it doesn't mean they're filling the tanks all the way. It doesn't mean they're using all that fuel for flight. It doesn't mean that there isn't some kind of Schauberger vortex technology and that they're actually, they only have to fill up a little bit each time. All those things, may be true, but he definitely, in my opinion, debunked major portions of that thing. And so I think Karen B's boyfriend did a live stream on, or husband, I'm not sure if they're married or not, did a live stream with Iron Realm Media on this subject. And, again, it's a hot potato because people have their favorite pet theories and they just stick with them. Going back to the limestone and this geologist who was mocking me. So I had done a bunch of videos. Let me pull up some examples of the stone for people who aren't already familiar with this, on these Swiss cheese stones that are found on and all over Mont Go. And and so, this is an example of what they call karst limestone, which these lines are supposedly eroded by water and mineral. Make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. You are, good. To me, this looks a lot more like a blood vessel network, and that looks like the remains of blood, and that's why it's red, and the rest of this is white. Because the limestone is white because it's made of bone. Right? That's official geology. It's made of compressed mollusk, You've got this whole, geological process, and as everything gets pushed down more and more. And then they say these fissures are being formed by acid rainwater going through, and then wearing out all or eroding all of these caves. And I no longer believe that. If you look at how bone is formed, these are called osteons. They form like rings of a tree, and the outer portions of the ring are solid and have very little in the way of vascularity, which is the word for blood vessels. And so I've shown lots of examples of this. These are broken fragments, and here you can see some of those big channels going in. Well, those channels break off into smaller and smaller channels. You can see that here. Right? So how does water erosion do this? So getting back to this geologist, he's mocking me and he's like, "You're an idiot. If you had just looked closer with the naked eye, you would have seen that those bits of limestone that you're saying are Titan bone are actually made of compressed shells and mollusks and whatnot." And I'm like, I'm thinking about it. That's not true. That can't be true, because I've been looking at these stones for years. I've never seen any fossils embedded in any of those stones, and I had lots of photographic and video footage from my initial videos on unveiling a Titan. And so then I started thinking about bone. This is bone with blood in it. This is bone with dehydrated blood. And this is what I'm talking about. You've got cortical bone, and that's very compact. There's still little blood vessels going through, but they're going to be bigger compared to this Swiss cheese stuff, and they're going to be very infrequent. And then inside, you've got this Swiss cheese stone, and this is what it looks like in the skull. It's a much finer version compared to what's in the arm or in the legs. This is what it looks like under a microscope. So here's your fractal nature of reality. This is a microscope, and the other things that I just showed you, this is in human, or this is inside of, what was living biology. This is not considered limestone, by geology. They don't talk about that kind of limestone anywhere. And this is a very long, Wikipedia article. They do have this. This is the only thing anywhere. And wow, doesn't that look a lot like that? Just a coincidence? Maybe not. I'm going to do a video on this, but, if you look into quarries, because I think there's a big difference between native stone and quarried stone. Is this geopolymer? Has this been laid down in layers so that they can later carve it up and pull it out? Or is this the earth as it was created? Well, I've got other, pictures of quarries where, look at those deposits of iron ore, right? Maybe if you get close, you see holes going in. Is it possible that limestone isn't just compressed bone? Like this might be compressed bone. Here, for example, you can find, I'll show you under microscope. So basically, this geologist was mocking me. He's like, if you had just looked, you would have seen that it's made of compressed shells. Like just the slightest bit of research, and you would have been fine. This is what he's talking about, right? That's exactly what mainstream geology is telling us limestone is made of. Now I can understand if that got compressed for millions and millions of years, and it started to become hot and metamorphosize, then that might become some smooth, unbroken kind of material that wouldn't show any traces of the original stuff. I have a hard time believing that. I think that sooner or later you would come across one of these. Well, that didn't happen at all with the limestone on the mountain. I had looked at it many, many, many times with the naked eye and found nothing like this. This is what it should look like under a microscope, right? I went out with this microscope, and it's wireless, so you can use it with your phone, so you don't have to sit there. You can actually use it in the field. It cost me 40 euros, an incredible piece of technology. Every family with small kids should have one of these. If you don't, you're a negligent parent, in my opinion. So the kids can explore the microscopic realm. And I went back out, and first I found another microscope that didn't do enough of what I wanted. I went out and I looked at rocks like this, which under the naked eye, guess what? No hint of any shell, mollusk, coral, nothing anywhere. I went out with a 60x microscope initially, and I took these pictures, and not one of them had any shells in them. So this is what you got to do if you're going to make claims about things. You got to go out and actually prove the claims. So this part is broken off. So I thought, okay, nothing on the surface. Well, that could be because of water, wind, rain erosion, mineral erosion. Maybe in here there would be something. And again, I got in with the microscopes and nothing. So, to the geologist who mocked me, he's the mockery, really, because he has engaged in, what is it they say? Condemnation without investigation is proof of your indoctrination, right? So then I went out with please say that you've been seeing all of this that I've been showing. Wait, let me just make sure I'm even streaming, for all I know. Still going? Hi, everybody. Getting bored yet? Oh, by the way, I didn't mention it, but if anyone wants to do any super chats, I'm going to be using it towards a drone so I can get much better footage of Montgo. So far, all the donations that I've had on the channel have gone back into the channel. If the channel someday gets big and I start making some actual money, boy, wouldn't that be nice? So far, I've literally spent thousands of hours on this. I probably average $1 to $2 an hour based on donations and YouTube revenue, which is next to nothing. Okay, not bored. Good. I'll keep going. So anyway, I rectified this claim that I had made about the World's Fairs. I still have my doubts. Like if you consider that there's a bunch of glass palaces that have steel frame architecture, or had, because those buildings are no longer here. Funny that that doesn't really fit in with the wood frame building narrative. So I still, Ewar and wooden nickels, they seem like they've kind of jumped ship when it comes to the whole idea that there was a worldwide civilization that was very advanced that existed before some cataclysm. I still believe that very much, but I think that the things that they're showing are important to see, and they need to be integrated into what we're all talking about. So I rectified this. I did a live stream with, I think it was Rodrigo Ferrari Nunez, a PhD in anthropology. Might have been him. It could have been. I went looking for it. I couldn't find it. But I pulled up a bunch of the pictures that. Now Wooden Nickels and other people have gone thoroughly through these photo archives, and shown that a lot of the claims that was being made, about by this community, by a lot of people in this community, that those claims were complete bunk. And here's the photographic evidence. And when people started showing evidence, they're like, no, that's not evidence. That's been photoshopped. That's been this, that. They're always got a reason not to believe it. And I did that initially, but once my friend Eugenie showed me these pictures, let's see if I can find just quickly the World's Fairs. There we go. So, going back to when I saw this picture, I'm just like, there's no way. I lived in Rome. I went to the top of St. Peter's Cathedral. That cannot be a Hollywood set. There's no way. And even if all of this was fake, what about the fountains? What about the obelisks? What about the sculptures? Well, now we know, a lot of that stuff can be fabricated in molds, and, geopolymers is not just a thing for the ancient lowest world, as Paul Cook is showing, but probably also for sculptures and for architecture And so I had all these beliefs about the maps, and you know, I like that one. Fun. There was a castle on top of Mount Go once, or not a castle, but there was this Iberian settlement there. You know, so there's the Star Forts. This is the Star Fort. There's Mount Go in the background. This is the Denia Star Fort. This is on a base of limestone. I'm going to do a whole video on, or a series on the Star Forts that I've investigated with boots on the ground evidence. This is biology, in my opinion, or biogeology. It's not geopolymer. I have lots of evidence for that, which I'll share with Paul, because the old world is way more far out than any of us realized. And going back to the construction photos, these are just a small picking of what Eugenie originally showed. These are high def photos, and you know, okay, well, yeah, that's just scaffolding, right? Well, what about this one? You know, you've got literally every stage of construction, and they seem to be doing it, you know, without roads. Funny that. Like, how did everything get there? To me, it doesn't solve the mystery. It just creates a whole lot more mysteries, because the world's fairs are still more mysterious than ever, even if these are made of wood. So check out Wooden Nickels. Check out EWAR for you know, for more evidence on that topic. So let's check in with you guys, see how things are going. I'm just gonna really quickly run to the toilet, and if there are any questions that people have put in the chat and have been waiting for answers on, please, oh, hey, Eugenie's in the chat. Check out his channel. He's got one video on this subject, his only video ever. Kick-ass video. Can't believe he hasn't made more. What a fool. He was off to a great start, though. Check out Eugenie's video. It's on his channel is called Retrospectrology, or Spectology. Damn it, I can never. Retrospectology. In retrospect, right? Looking back on things. Eugenie and I and many others have very different opinions about the World's Fair. And anyone who's still going around making those claims about this was impossible or that was impossible needs to think again. And actually, if you've made videos on the subject, go out in public and you know, rectify your mistakes. Yeah, horse and wagons, I don't know. I mean, some of those beams are massive, but okay. So I'll be right back in just a couple minutes. Hold on one sec. Actually, I can put on one thing here real quick. Going back to... never mind. I'll just leave it there for a second.
When you start to question the whole thing, it unwinds. Behold the great deception. Traversing throughout time. Do you dare to question suggestion. It leaves you all entwined. I've been searching round for curvature, but there ain't none to see. No matter where I let my head turn, seems awfully flat to me. Will you start to question the shackles of your mind? If you let it open, you know there's truth.
Okay, I'm back. It wasn't. That was part of one of the songs I did with Alex before he created the Flat Earth Man character. A lot of people love it. He's not fond of it because it's not his singing, and he just grew so much as an artist after he started making videos, and so it's a chapter of life that he'd probably like to forget. Yeah, that's a song that I wrote, and I'm singing it, and it never, to my satisfaction, was finished. But he lost patience with me because he didn't want to sit around, while I did take after take after take. Given the right amount of time and some good astrological transits, I might have been able to do better. But he doesn't think so. He calls me Britney, like Britney Spears. Because he feels that it's very important that people who don't know how to sing are not encouraged to get up and sing in public. If they want to sing in private, fine, but yeah. Anyway, so I reached out to Ewar, actually. You guys might find that interesting. And let's see if I can find those exchanges. I have a second song that I haven't released called Jingle Jangled. And it's a song that I did when I started to learn about the whole Jimmy Savile nightmare and the stuff that he had been doing, and how it had been so effectively and systematically been covered up by people very high up in society, and that he was obviously very good friends with the royals and ties to pretty much everyone famous, so when I learned about him, I was just so disgusted, and I felt I needed to write a song about that. So at some point, there's one verse that I still haven't sung, so I need to finish it, but I have to do it on my own means, and I don't have Apple's computer, and they were done in Logic, so I don't know if there's PC-based software that will use Logic files, and I could use that to edit, but I just need to. The music's already done. Alex did his part, but I need to finish singing one more verse, and then I can release it. And personally, I think it's a kick-ass song, even if my singing isn't the strongest. Britney Spears is a train wreck. Some think I am. So don't talk about who. Oh yeah. No, don't talk about the big evil man who got covered up for decades while he was abusing people. Truly hideous, and it's just an example of things filter down from the top, and if it's corrupt at the top, then the whole system ends up being corrupt, which is kind of the world we live in, sadly. So, let's see, that one I've got. I was gonna. Oh yeah, you are. Oh wow, that's that wasn't what I meant to pull up, but that's a good one. How many wounds can you turn into wisdom? No, that was the reply. So you are. So I wrote, I've enjoyed your videos and respect your willingness to change horses midstream based on new information. If not all the clinkers, he's talking about melted brick, they're called clinkers, are the result of heat in kilns, and I do not believe they are, then I would guess some are the remains of antediluvian reset, something akin to whatever took out the great trees and the titans. You mentioned the great trees in previous videos. I wonder if you still consider it a real possibility they existed, and whether you've seen the boots on the ground work presented by Hangman 1128 on the subject. While he does approach it all from a biblical Christian perspective, his empirical evidence is incredibly compelling. Lastly, I wonder if you're familiar with my research, and I just talk about my research there. And also, I didn't mention this earlier in the stream for the people who are new to the channel, but with the mountain alone, there's over 50 anatomical correlations. So that's if that's pareidolia, then the universe is playing a massive cosmic joke on me. And yeah, the more you look for things, the more you find them, right? And so if you've got pareidolia and you've made mistaken assumptions about things and you go looking for things to confirm your belief, you're going to find them probably. But I'm approaching it with anatomical books, anatomical knowledge, and actually predicting things. And I talk a lot about prediction. If you have a theory, it should be repeatable. Now, we can't, from a scientific perspective, using the scientific method, again, as I said before, there's no variable to manipulate with the mountain or with the heartstones. But it doesn't mean that I'm not engaging in the scientific method, right? I formulated a hypothesis. I developed testable predictions. I went up to the eye after looking at the anatomy books and had a list of things I would like to find, and I found some of those things. That shouldn't be the case, right? What are the odds? And then the same thing with the heartstones. I went out live in the field, but I've also found stones that are partially buried, and I can recognize the shape, and then I unbury them, and guess what? It's a harp stone, right? A heart stone, a harp-shaped stone, whatever you want to call it. And so that means I'm actually recognizing a repeatable phenomenon in that is scalable. Also, this is very important. They're not just one size. It's all the creatures. It's from millimeters on up to a meter, right? Or more probably. In fact, if you're thinking about the fractal size of things and going up to maybe continents were beings or the world itself was once a being, Africa sure looks a heck of a lot like a harp-shaped stone to me. Is that what it is? I don't know. Am I engaging in pareidolia? That looks a lot like E.T., but I'm not saying it's E.T. So Ewar responded to me. Oops, where'd it go? Too many screens. Here we go. Wait a minute. I don't have the response here. Where is it? It's... Okay, I'm gonna go looking for it because I want to show it after talking about it. So let's see, it's on his channel, and I think it's his brick video. Oh, 106 people watching. Welcome everybody to Stellium 7. Okay, no, what am I doing? Let's see, I think it was the one on the clinker bricks. Where are the rest of the videos? Oh, there we go, melted brick. Okay. So, he writes, "Hey mate, thanks for the comment. I've checked out both yours and Hangman's channels before, both very interesting. I do still believe in the antediluvian and the great trees." I was happy to hear that. He hasn't thrown out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to everything, but I find the whole petrification, calcification investigation to geology fascinating. Unfortunately, I'll probably never cover it again as my interests research has moved on into different areas. My coverage of the trees and everything I put out in my older 2 series was only supposed to be a coherent collection of conspiracy topics to help people get up to speed and pursue further exploration. Interesting. That's exactly how I took it from the very first video I ever saw on him. So people are talking about him flip-flopping, he's, and that he's a shill and all these things, and ultimately maybe he is, but I don't think so. I think he's intellectually honest. I think he's engaging in real investigation, and I think he's changing his opinion based on new information, which every single one of us should be doing. What else? Further exploration. He said, "I'll definitely try and swing by when I have some time and check out some of your recent vids. It's been a while since I watched anything on this subject." So that made me feel good. He'd actually seen some of my videos and actually liked them and had good things to say. I thought that was very interesting because, in my opinion, the evidence for the big trees is self-evident. If you look at Hangman's footage, if you have the eyes to see and an open mind, it is what it is. And I believe that I believe that a lot of the here, go back to the while I'm looking for it, you can look at that. That's not far from Montgo. But I'm guessing that's probably pareidolia. I don't know. I could be wrong. But maybe not. Let's see. Here's a Sigmund Freud tree. Here's Sigmund Freud. Right? Memorize the face. Tell me that's not him with the friggin' pipe and everything. or the cigar. I mean, come on. It's Sigmund Freud. But I don't think he grew into the tree somehow, miraculously. So let me think. I had a whole folder of just images. Let me go through these quickly with you guys. That goes back to the whole jet fuel thing. And yeah, when you see this initially, it's easy to have a knee-jerk reaction. Be like, there's no way in hell that much fuel could possibly go in those wings. Sorry for the moped. Those things are horrible. 50 cc, they take the mufflers off so they go faster, and then they destroy the piece. So I saw this initially, Mud Fossil University. I was thinking, oh man, it's a mushroom, and maybe the reason those they stay on top so well is because if you look at the structure of a mushroom, the stem goes up into the cap and connects pretty solidly there, and that would explain it, so when you see this sort of a thing, it's not such a reach, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's something else going on there. This is definitely not an elephant in my world. Okay, I know the difference between pareidolia and a tree that looks like an elephant. And I was gonna pull up that. What was it? Yeah. So yeah, you see the bunny face, angry bunny? Not there. It's just an upside down cat. I know that's hard to believe. So this is not a heart stone, but it is a bit of stone shaped like a heart. So that would be pareidolia. That's different from what I've done on my channel. Here's another one as far as intellectual honesty. Because I have talked about these in a couple of videos, this was such a mystery to me. these lines going, and this is just one of them. I found these in several places. And I'm like, what is this? If biogeology is a thing, and this is actually, shit, I've probably not been, oh, good. Sharing my screen, good. Okay, if biogeology is a thing, what are these? Are these are these glands, that you've got these sphincter muscles in glands that release whatever the gland is producing out into the body? I didn't know. If we're talking about because this is on Mont Go, and if we're talking about a creature that's 3 miles long, when, as I said in the very first video, when you're looking at something that's the size of a Titan, 3 miles long, you are the microscope. And in my case, I'm the mic microscope, fully mictivated from the mictinium, when you're that tiny in relation to something that big, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to take a microscope and apply that to the other stuff and see if it matches up with what mainstream geology tells us, which I did, and it doesn't. So there. And to Gaia, the geologist wannabe who criticized me, and then without even entering into any dialogue with me whatsoever, even though he was on the same Discord, went and made a video about it, mocking me, You're an idiot. So anyway, so I just got some new information about this the other day, something I hadn't considered, but I realized that all of the places that I found this on Mont Go were places where there was a ledge road that had been carved so that, push carts up or possibly vehicles, and that was where I was finding these. I never found them anywhere else, and I couldn't figure it out. I thought, okay, well, they've carved away, to make way for the road, so they've exposed this. But then somebody just a few days ago, or maybe last week, mentioned that she sent me a picture. It's on the Telegram channel in the BIOGEOLOGY chat, and she had the same thing. And when my monitor's about to turn off. And when she asked a geologist or somebody about it, I don't know if it was a geologist, they said, "Oh yeah, that's from impact, from dynamite." And so when they're blasting to make roads, they drilled down cores to explode away portions, like to carve a road, but they're also doing charges that are placed on the ground, I guess, or I don't know exactly how it works, but that made perfect sense to me, because if you think of like smashing a window or something, you're going to get that sunburst pattern. And so this is probably where they had charges set to make way for that road. So I'm willing to let go of my theories when I find evidence that goes against them. Are you? All right, so back to the pictures. So I don't think those things are mushrooms. Initially, here's another one I had to backtrack on. I was finding a lot of stones that look like this stuff. See all the little holes everywhere? I was finding those in other locations, and I was thinking, this must be lung, right? Because lung is exactly like that. It's got lots of holes all throughout it, and those holes expand into little bubbles that are called alveoli, and when we breathe in, that's what we're doing. We're expanding our lungs and filling them with air. So I thought, oh, this must be lung material. And then as I was walking around down by the seashore, I realized, wait a minute, this material is actually being eroded by the mineral content in the water. But look at this whole thing. Notice how they're all stuck together? That is geopolymer. So they're using heartstones, and they do this in the star forts as well, and I'll show that when I start the star fort series. They're using heartstones oftentimes, or not just heartstones, but what I call petrified organs. They're using these as geopolymer, aggregate that they're just throwing in to make the geopolymers. So the stones are eroding, but wow, that glue that's holding them all together, it's holding better than the strength of the stone. So so not lung tissue, and this is they call this petrified sandstone here. And I don't know, it may be petrified Titan blood. So yeah, and this is one I think that might be interesting for Paul Cook. I doubt he'll ever spend 3 hours to watch one of my videos, but if he happens to catch it, good on you, Paul. Keep doing what you're doing. Loving it. And imagine if tons of people started to do what he's doing. We'd know a lot more, a lot sooner about our realm. And it's true of all of these Titan candidates. So that gets back to another folder that I wanted to show, which has to do with these Titan candidates, because these are pictures that I put, several of them I put in the very first video. I don't think that's an elephant for a second, but it looks a bit like one. This one I'm not so sure about. That is pretty fascinating. And if you get on Google Earth, it looks like an elephant from a variety of different angles. That was one of the first ones. A lot of people have seen this. I don't know. People have said it doesn't look like an elephant from the other side, but if it were, it's all mixed in with all of this that appears to be melt or lava or whatnot. So is that just pareidolia? Probably, but isn't it interesting that there's like this shape here, right where the eye is, and when you zoom in on the here, wait a minute, zoom in on a different picture. When you zoom in, it almost looks like the contour of elephant skin. But I'd be surprised if it really was petrified elephant. Don't think for a second that this was an elephant. Just because something is an arch doesn't mean this is a trunk. You know what I mean? And you can see these lines here that suggest that that's not the case. That one is interesting. I'd want to see that one from a variety of different angles. It's obviously really thick for an elephant trunk, but maybe other material caked to it or what. But I'm not saying it is, but I think it's fascinating. I don't think this is an elephant. These are all pictures from that very first video I did. That's going to be a video, which we don't want. Moving right along. Here you've got sedimentary layering. This is another one. I got mocked because of the sedimentary layering of Montgo. And the question is it sedimentary layering? It's all limestone, but there's different lines of color. So where are you? Where did everybody go? There we go. Okay. So there, you've got these lines, and it's one color, and then a slightly different color, and then another color, and well, I puzzled over that for a long time, because I'm like, the eye is there, the anatomy for the eye is there, the ear is there, potential anatomy for the ear. I haven't been inside, but there's a whole team of archaeologists that have gone in and filmed, and they've got more footage than you could hope for inside this canal that happens to be right in the middle, where there's a cutout that looks like a quarter moon, just like our ears do. If I rip off my ear, there's going to be this shape, and there's going to be a hole going in. And that's exactly the case with Montgo, in the right place. And then it curves in on the sides, right where it curves in where our neck is and where our shoulders begin. On both sides of the mountain, there's cutouts there as well. And then when you look from above on Google Earth, from lots of different angles, you see the remains of what appears to be the rib cage, spine, and then a big deep canyon right between where the legs would be. So that's a whole lot of coincidences, right? Not even counting the eye and the ear. But this is why it took me so long before I made my first video on it. I'm like, this is the craziest idea, and I'm gonna, like somebody, many people have said, this guy makes the flat earthers look smart, as if they were the dumb ones. Isn't life ironic? So anyway, I don't think that's an elephant, and it took a while before someone in the comment section was talking about, well, if you had mud flood, or great flood waters that's mixed with a slurry of different materials and mud, and as that's receding, you're going to get different lines of color. So if there was a great flood and the ocean levels rose, as mainstream geology tells us it did, as that level drops, you're going to get I didn't think, there's no way, it didn't, like, what is a Titan going to petrify in layers, like from the top down? No, unless it's some weird petrification technology we don't know about. Of course not. But the layering is fascinating. So so that was a big one for me, because I'm just like, I'm not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I found all this other information, but I want to know, like, why would that happen? If I'm right about the mountain, which I still believe I am, then why would there be this layering? And so I got that comment about the recession of the floodwaters, which I was thrilled about, because I was like, wow, that's one plausible explanation. I've had another geologist has chimed in, and he had a very interesting explanation, which I won't go into because it was detailed. And I'm looking for a picture while I'm talking here. While I'm looking for that, I'll show you this one. The reason I'm going so long is because I've had so many threads that I've wanted to talk about, and sometimes it takes me a lot of courage just to hit the record button. That might seem surprising to a lot of you guys, but I'm definitely it definitely takes some working up. So as long as I'm on a roll, I think I'll just keep going. I'm still looking for this other one. Where did it go? It's all about the skull. Come on. I mean, basically, what I wanted to show you, and I can't find the picture. I thought I had brought it out. Is that if you look at the way skull bone grows, I can search for it online. Hold on. Skull bone synostosis. It can be seen best with a kind of disease that exaggerates the effect. But here you can see this is from the top looking down. This is called the fontanella. These close up and fuse, but initially when our kids were babies, just after they were born, this was literally pulsing. It was incredibly far out, and there was no bone there, and that bone grows in. But you can see this is like topographic lines, right? These grow. This is how skull grows. Guess what it would look like if you look from the side? Those would look like nearly parallel lines or parallel lines, right? So I didn't just throw everything out because somebody came up with one little thing that was like, nope, that contradicts your theory. Okay, that one thing contradicts my theory, so I'm going to have to throw out the 49 other things that are actually in alignment with it. So, this is, be patient, because sometimes you have evidence for something that you don't have proof for. And then eventually the proof arrives. And when it does, it's a wonderful thing, right? May still be wrong, but at least I've got a plausible explanation for, these different things, like with the stones. So so far in this live stream, that's what, half a dozen, maybe a dozen different things that I believed one thing about, and then I changed my mind about it. But I also came out with my opinions about that change. And then you got to be cautious, because there's a lot of stuff out there that's being passed off as something real that is utter bullshit, right? Photoshop is real. Just because something looks like something doesn't mean it is. And if you find original photos of things, you can see what they've done with them. So, how's everybody doing? Good. All right. So, moving along, I'm going to go until I'm done with everything I had today, and hopefully everyone will enjoy it as it's happening. So, this really cracked me up. Whoops. A little vulgar, but really funny. Saw the new Lord of the Rings stuff last night. I was not expecting it to be good, and I was actually pleasantly surprised that it was enjoyable, visually very, very appealing. And I posted this in the community thread. This is, I'm not sure where it's from or how long ago, but you can pause that and read it if you like. This picture I took yesterday kind of looks like an owl, doesn't it? It's not an owl. It's part of that 1,000-year-old, or that's what they say here, olive tree. Absolutely magnificent tree, incredible to hang around and just sit by it. It just immediately makes me feel peaceful and at ease every time I go there. And I posted this at one point because I was like, it's Paul Bunyan's axe. It's kind of fun. But these are just all examples of pareidolia, right? Is that cloud a cat or a dog? I don't know. But this is the point I want. This is my main point. Don't be one of those idiots on the left, okay? Don't. Stop calling people shills. My good friend Alex has been called a shill over and over and over again. I've been called a shill. All of the content providers have been called shills. All of them, at one time or another. If you haven't, it's a rite of passage you haven't gone through yet. If you're going to cast aspersions and make claims, you better have some evidence. And RV doesn't have shit. He doesn't. He's made claims about stuff that I know to be fact, or not. I know to be false because I'm the one who took the photographs and filmed the footage that he's making claims about that are false. So RV is, never go full RV. This is not an elephant. And did I get through them all? No, just stop there. All right. So, this is what I like about Autodidactic's channel is he's constantly encouraging people to educate themselves. And you can tell that Bill Gates has done it. He's educated himself very well. Dropped out of Harvard, learned how to lie with statistics. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Is this formally a wall? If this is a wall, then why does the contour of the land do the same thing? Some are like, this is here in Spain. I would love to go visit this and look at it up close. Is this geopolymer or is this a natural formation? And if so, why does it form? No idea. There's a dude there. Or is there? Godzilla. And the counter space, there's a face. That's not pareidolia, though. That's actually how many elephants they put on the wings of the big planes. And here's NASA engaging in pareidolia on Mars. I meant Devon Island or wherever it is they ride their robot cars around. I showed that one before, but there you can see them side by side. Not E.T. I do believe this is a petrified heart, and boy, oh boy, doesn't it look like it? That was posted somewhere once upon a time, and I found it, and it's just one of many really beautiful examples. This is somewhere, I think, in Iran or Iraq. That's another one that's got an elephant vibe, but you'd have to look at it from all the other sides. Maybe it only looks like it from this angle, but it sure looks like it's an elephant head turning towards us, and that's where I would go first. So I think the caves, if you're going to engage in titanology, the caves are the key. Because the caves, if there's caves where they should be, and you can go in and you can find anatomical correlations, then you got something. If all you've got is a picture from one angle, you've got nothing, right? You've got pareidolia in the eyes of anyone who's discerning. Doesn't mean there isn't a possibility. Like if we go back to this here, let's see. Okay, these are some of the ones I had in my first video. This one, I cannot believe there isn't video footage of people going into these caves yet. Are there other orifices to explore? I've been in not just the eye of Montgo, but there's other caves that one of them was incredibly interesting because I believe it's a Titan artery. It's got about a 20 to 30 foot long 10-inch layer of crystal that runs the length of the distance between two different caves. And that's totally in alignment with my theory about Titans and the fact that things are fractal, and you should find the same thing on multiple different levels. Wow. So to me, this is one of the things that if you go on certain, TikTok videos and YouTube channels, they're posting tons of videos like this that are either one, photoshopped, or two, like this is, if you saw this at a different time of day, it might look completely different. If you saw it from a different angle, same thing. You can't just go, that's a face. It's definitely a petrified giant, 100%. If you don't believe it, you're an idiot or probably a shill. There's loads and loads of examples of that. Before you start making claims, like this, yeah, it does look like the profile of a face, but does an eye stretch down to there with like material that goes all the way down and then becomes something else? I don't think so. This is why I titled this Truth or Discernment. This definitely looks like a foot. These look like toes, but it's all sandstone, right? You should have multiple different kinds of stone here if this were a foot. Not just, you want to break that up a little bit or see, but, who knows what that is. But, so this is pareidolia. That was the number, the title of this whole thing is all about pareidolia. And yeah, people can come in and Photoshop their ideas, just like the tusks on my very first video. And it might be a learning aid to help people, but if you start making claims that this was once a giant, a big Titan or a giant, you better have more proof. But there's plenty in our history, in our ancient books, in our mythologies to suggest that Titans were real. I believe they were, obviously, but I didn't arrive at that belief because I saw a couple videos on YouTube, and I'm a YouTube researcher. Yeah, a few videos turned me on to the idea, but I took it way, way further. And isn't it interesting? Roger never mentions my channel. He even did a video about heartstones. Never mentioned any of my research on the heartstones or the fact that I sent them off to a reputable laboratory and how that went down. He's a faceless guy who's always certain about everything. And he's got a following of people that are like a cult. And almost every video I make, they come and they cast aspersions and they make statements about me and they say I'm a pretender and that I've stolen his ideas or whatever. And it's like, no, I incorporated his ideas. I made discoveries that I didn't understand. And the process of trying to understand them, I came up with theories. And then I came up with more and more information that surprisingly, to my surprise, supported those theories. And I don't mean to sound, get on a high horse or, sound like, I think we all need to have some humility and recognize that none of us has all the answers. Other people should be able to have differences of opinion without being, I've got to defriend you or, make a video about you, mocking you or something like that. This is from Lord of the Rings. I think there's a lot of truth in plain sight in all of the movies, the animated movies, the regular movies, the cartoons seem to have more of it than anything. It's almost like they want to, they're trying to get us to see this stuff. So this is incredibly fascinating. It looks very much like a spine. I've got a video I'm going to do on another mountain in the region that I think may be some kind of a creature along these lines, and it's got this undulating groove that goes right down the middle, right where your spinal cord and your bone marrow, your spinal cord and your cerebral spinal fluid would be. There's a groove there in the spine, and if the back of the spine were to be broken off for a road, you would have that channel going there. And so I'll make a video about that. But these are all, this is fascinating. That one, I'd like to see that from another angle. Is this petrified brain? I have no idea. How would it petrify without the body? Why would it just be sitting there? Was it removed and then petrified? I mean, it's, Roger claims this is real. I don't think so. I think that's been thoroughly debunked. He thinks that's some kind of a thing. This is the one I was saying I wish people would go and look at more closely. I have no idea where it is. Is that a hand or is that pareidolia? Don't know. And that was that folder. Covering everything in one video here. Not an elephant. And then, someone sent me these coordinates. Yeah, kind of looks like an elephant laying on its side, but why would it be that shape? Is that an eye? Somebody needs to go there and see, is this material different from this material? Or is this just an accumulation of dirt or mud or water or whatever, and so that's why it looks different? Yeah, and this is a fascinating one. I'm a little skeptical because of just the extreme sedimentary layering here. Why would it just be layers all the way down? And these aren't layers that are changes in color. This is like stepladder kinds of layers. And this is not necessarily anatomically correct. I've gone online and I've looked at a lot of pictures from inside this cave. This is in Cape Town in South Africa, and I've found nothing that suggests that was an eye or an eye socket. Could be. I don't know. Everything good? Still 5x5, everybody? I'm going to come back. I'm almost done with the presentation, and then where's the love from Roger? Exactly. I don't trust Roger at all. He's not willing to put his face to his research, and he's never made a mention in any kind of a loving way about anything that I've done over the last 4 years, or 3.5. And so if you're a Roger lover and you think that I should be paying homage, my days of homage are done. And also, his mud fossil theory doesn't work with my mountain or the Heartstones. So, but that doesn't mean there isn't truth to mud fossil theory. I'm not throwing out mud fossil theory or a lot of very interesting things that Roger said over the years and things that I learned from him. I'm not throwing Roger under the bus. I just think he sucks. And when it comes to being honest, exercising discernment, being willing to admit you're wrong, those kinds of things. You won't find that coming from his channel. So if you want to say nasty things about me because of what I've said about Roger, go ahead. I'll ban you. But if you want to come with salient objections, criticisms for salient arguments is what I wanted to say. If you have actual arguments that go against what I'm saying, that prove me wrong, by all means, come with them. But if you lead with an insult, or you expect me to, bow and kowtow to Roger or Alan every time I make a video, forget it. And wait, there was a video. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I believe this is maybe not Photoshop, but there's another picture where there's a little mini version that's over to the left that's pointing towards it, and it's like, oh, how cute! It's got a little child as well, and you'd have to be a fool to believe that. Spot on level, yes. Move on. I have moved on, but I get these comments that make it hard to move on, and sometimes I have to address them. All right, so that's the end of that group of pictures, I believe. No, it's not. So this one here, this is called Elephant Island. I don't know about that one. This one I definitely don't feel was an elephant. Look at all this layering. It's clearly layering. That's not water receding and changing color, which is what I see when I look at Mont Go. Here's another example of something that's definitely not elephant. I mean, how obvious can it be? I had that in my first video. I posted it as one of many, many different examples that had gotten me thinking. Doesn't mean I thought that that was an elephant, but it's the accumulation of all these different examples that, that caused me to start looking at the mountain differently, and then eventually the rocks differently. Nothing about this looks like elephant. How this formed is a mystery, but this is called Elephant Rock here. This is that one again. Here's another example of a non-elephant, and another. Just because something has an arch doesn't mean it's an elephant. This is Es Vedra. Now this is limestone, and this is fascinating. This is what I see all over Spain, and a lot of these mountains that I believe are biological in origin and not like geology tells us. And now we're just on repeat here. Let me see if there's anything else. This is from, this is Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. These ancient stories are so fascinating, and it makes you wonder, like, what is this place? Archaics would say simulation. So there's lots of elephant rocks around the world that don't look like elephants when you really think about it. But if there are any that have caves or anything that you can start to use to explore, then by all means, go ahead, make videos, and please send them to me, because I'm the only one out here. I mean, Tyson from Mud Fossil Adventures, who's a big fan of Roger, and basically turned his nose up at me and said some nasty comments, and wasn't buying a bit of anything that I was saying because he was in Roger's camp. He's got some really interesting high quality footage. I don't agree with a lot of his conclusions, but some of them are kind of fascinating, so it's worth looking into. There, somebody who insulted me, I've just sent people to his channel, right? I won't throw out the baby with the bathwater if there's something of value there, and I think he's got something of value. At the very least, not his conclusions, but his footage, because he's gone to some of the most amazing geological sites in this part of the world that he lives in. So, yeah, and so I haven't even finished watching this. I only got 4 minutes in, but it's this whole idea of Tartaria wolf in sheep's clothing. And I think, in a sense, Ewar's almost gone a little too far, because he's just kind of thrown the whole topic under the bus. And my feeling about it is that Tartary was always, for me, just kind of a place marker term for some kind of a lost ancient civilization. Hey, Brittany! Brittany in the house. I think I'm doing a live stream with Brittany and Andreas sometime next week. I have no idea what the subject matter is, but I've been invited, so I'll update you on that one. Hey, Karen, welcome back. Yeah, there was a lot to cover, and covering all this stuff will help me get on to other stuff as well. I always saw Tartary as a great placeholder. The people that I was involved with that were looking into this stuff 4 years ago, Andreas Exertus and the recent Tartarians who were all on this Discord, 13th Monkey and Vic DeBuge and Lee and Willie and Eugenie, a number of people who I've mentioned many times. Lenny Time, who just showed up in the chat. Hey, Lenny. I think, we were already exposing a lot of stuff way, way earlier that, before Ewar ever made his first video, that kind of went beyond some of the conclusions that I think he's drawing now. I'm glad he's gone back and corrected himself and looked at new information, and, there's all this hullabaloo about melted bricks and melted buildings and melted brains and I think save that for another time. But yeah, so here we come to save the day. Nope, that's not what I want to do. That's OBS. What was I doing? No, I wanted to change to that one. Okay, so let's look at maybe... No, if I do it... I don't even know how to do this. People are always... There we go. They're always showing the chat. There we go. And... Nope. Messing with OBS. There we go. All right. So let's have a look at what's going on. Hi, everybody. Oh, yeah. There was a. Nope. I went through that too. Hot diggity dog. I think I covered it all. Again, don't be one of those fools on the left. You know, if you're going to make claims, make sure you've got some support of it. And be aware that pareidolia is very much a real thing. And sometimes it feels like this is what we need. Are you seeing that? Yeah, throwing down some brains. All right, So if anyone has any questions that they've been waiting on for a long time, throw them in now in all caps. I'm not going to go back through the chat because what has this been going on now for at least 3 hours or something? I don't even remember when I started. Yeah, there's Karen, I think you'll like this one. Go back and check it out. What if every cell starts the day with the same narrative and then diverges, and then one that something happens gets a longer timeline? I don't understand that one, Lenny, sorry. Take a photo of yourself looking in the mirror, then look at yourself with no mirror. Yeah, it's so weird, the whole, we don't see ourselves the way others see us. And that's also a very good metaphor for life, isn't it? Tartaria came from real questions and quickly devolved into a narrative that's identical with the plot of Brave New World. Yeah, I'm not so sure about like Tartaria being a psyop that's, was brought up by the Chinese, and is a way of basically getting us all to love and embrace communism by thinking that there was some benevolent, all-encompassing civilization that was before, and hey, if we could only get back to that, and the best way to do that is through social credit scoring and digital currency and totalitarian control. Nah, I don't think so. Don't think so. The flood bodies have been decaying for nearly 4,000 years. My theory is that they were frozen in flood water. Well, there's a whole thing I didn't know about until a couple months ago when I was in a live stream with Cami on Iron Realm Media, and she or one of the others brought up these things called bog bodies, which is a form of petrification that happens to entire bodies when they're in bogs. That's a thing, bog bodies. And they're gruesome looking. They don't explain the petrified organs, so I still believe that there's some kind of a cataclysmic event that's resulting in these petrified organs. And if mainstream geology would like to explain how those rocks come about in a way that isn't the ridiculousness that was being perpetrated by Harry Hubbard and Frank Aon, which I cover in the Paradigm Crushed video, I would love to hear it because I've yet to see it. And if they're teeth or some other thing, it'll be interesting to see what the mainstream explanation is, both for the heartstones and also for this what I call trabecular bone, which is all over the mountain and is the mountain, which is not matching up with the official story at all, as I've proven with microscope. Tartaria morphed like the telephone game. Yeah, and with TikTok and all of these things, it's like you're going to get a whole lot of people. I don't know. I mean, what do you do? How can you possibly reel it in? It's like letting the genie out of the bottle, right? And but at least people are aware that maybe major aspects of our past and our history and, you know, in our present narratives are complete BS and need to be looked at a lot closer. We are one beast with a billion eyes. Yeah, well, I'll have another discussion with Lenny. Dr. Lenny Time, he's a PhD in molecular chemistry, I believe, and got 2 conversations with him that we had. They're in my channel, and we'll have another sometime soon. I'd like to get a panel discussions going to talk about these things with more people, because I'm just here by myself, echoing in the room. I hope the sound quality's been good through all this. Brutal to listen to 3 hours of me with bad quality. But definitely, Lenny, we'll get together, and I need to learn how to be able to bring... I'm using OBS, that's the step in the right direction after being very, very limited with StreamYard in my initial streams. This is a lot more fun, but I'm only scratching the surface with it, and I don't have a clue about how I would even bring in a guest if I wanted to have one, so I'll have to find out about that. Starfort work stands alone without Tartaria and requires explanation. I agree fully. The narrative on that is a joke. They're far, far older. They're found on every continent. They're on a scale that boggles the mind. And I'm not saying, oh, aliens built it or we didn't have the technology to do it. I am saying that nothing about the mainstream narrative makes any sense when you start to look into starforts with an actual critical, rational eye. And, there's Mike from 13th Monkey has he's mapped out over 10,000 of them so far. In the end, stone hearts and such are a natural phenomenon. We don't know how it just is. Yeah, the evidence is there, and now we have to understand the evidence, and that's what I've been attempting to do. It's not the other way around. I came up with a crazy idea, and then looked at the rocks, and then found a bunch of rocks that fit my idea. It was the opposite of that. Lizard people created the credit system for mankind. Wouldn't be surprised one bit. Maritime law, all that stuff. Chinese armies of stone, they unearthed are very good. Yeah, are those real bodies? I would not for a moment be surprised if they had technology where they could put somebody in a position and then petrify them. Based on what I know about Girolamo Sagato, Giordano Bruni, and geopolymers and what we can see them doing in present day, and what it seems pretty obvious they were doing with the sculptures back in the day. So kind of gruesome. Maybe they got really beautiful people and put them in really beautiful poses, and then they just said, hey, you want to upload yourself to the metaverse? You can be a god. You'll live forever. Paul Gould says for them to be turned to stone standing, they had to be frozen. I was in a live stream with Archaics, who I reached out to, but I never heard back from him through emails. Because I want to hear Archaics' take on petrification and titans, and introduce him to the Heartstone research and hear his thoughts on that. He's an incredible researcher, one of the most encyclopedic minds I've ever encountered. And he believes that we're in a simulation ultimately, which perhaps we are. But I asked in the live stream about petrification whether he what he thought about it, and he was talking about flash freezing. So like we know that the mammoths are still frozen in Siberia and they're thawing out, and they can even eat the meat apparently, because it's not gone bad. But my thought about the flash freezing is that if it's flash frozen, if you think about us being mostly water and water expands when it's frozen, then that expansion, in my mind, would break all the little microscopic boundaries between things. So it would all just kind of flow together to some degree, not entirely. And so if you flash froze, and then that was infiltrated by, say, mud flood paramineralization, where the minerals are working their way into the tissues, then that would explain bodies petrifying. Perhaps that explains the bog bodies. I don't know. But it doesn't explain the petrified organs, unless somehow there was some kind of a mineral change that was taking place that caused some of the organs to turn to stone, while the rest of the body then ends up decaying. But then you would expect to find the remains of bodies with stones in them, and we're not finding that. So, that's one of the reasons a lot of people have said I'm an idiot, is because they're like, oh, well, where's the rest of the body? I'm like, well, maybe you should look at the videos and see, because I've talked about that in every video I've ever made on the subject. The Chinese arbiters are very odd. Yeah. 5-MeO DMT was beyond the game. I tried that one, and I can agree. You're done, dude. What do you mean? Why is Lenny done? Wow, I'm getting behind here. All science. All in for science, but no scientism. Amen. Science is a tool. It's a tool for rationally examining our reality to try and understand it better. When the tool becomes dogma, it becomes religion, and then you get your high priests of scientism standing there parroting whatever the elite want them to parrot. And they're doing that either because they're willful dupes, or they're just cognitive dissonant, and they can't accept the fact that they might be wrong about things, or they're on the payroll, or they're just idiots who haven't really thought about what they believe. Boiled egg theory works better than flash frozen. That's my opinion when it comes to the petrified organs. And obviously, Lenny Time, he's got a right to have an opinion like that, because he's a PhD molecular chemist. So he's actually thinking about it in a way that I can't even begin to. So we've talked about that a bit, and he's working on different theories that have to do with cold fusion. I don't even know what cold fusion is or how it works. I thought that was something that was debunked a long time ago by the mainstream. But as we know, with just about everything that seems to have been debunked by the mainstream, comes back to haunt us later on as maybe not being debunked. Fast cold fusion between non-metal elements. I forgot about the mammoths. They had buttercups in their mouths that were uneaten when found in permafrost. That's interesting. I've never heard that. So that just gives you an idea of how fast those creatures were frozen. Yeah, Willie will go for mammoth burger anytime. I'm a vegetarian. I've been one my whole life, but I don't have a moral problem with eating mammoth burger because, well, you didn't have to kill it. It was already dead. No insects. No, thank you. Yeah. Yuck. Yeah, I looked at the Fraggle Rock thing the other day, the first episode, the first minutes, and it's kind of fun to watch. Who knows if they're trying to give you truth in plain sight or they were just talking about stuff. Veganism is scientism. Yeah, that's a subject I have mixed thoughts about, and I've been a vegetarian my entire life, and I still don't know the truth and what's best. I love animals so much that I can't stand the thought of taking one's life unnecessarily. I just turned 55, and I'm living proof that a person can be healthy and endurant and strong and have a brain that functions without meat and without fish and without poultry. I do eat dairy though, just small amounts, and I try and get locally produced small production as much as I can, in the hopes that at least maybe the creature had a decent life before they took it. Okay, and Lenny says he's having Uhura make some models for me. Uhura is the guy I mentioned before that did the CAD models for the airplanes and proved that the numbers that they were giving were accurate. Doesn't mean that they're burning all that fuel, but at least the rate of fuel consumption and the size of the wings and what they can contain is accurate based on the numbers that they're giving to the whole public worldwide. So before you make claims about, jet fuel hoax, you need to do a lot more investigation. And I didn't go into the comment threads at all. That's the first video I've ever made where I'm not liking and loving everything or responding to people, because, like I said, I don't have a horse in the race on that one. I just wanted to talk about it as a means of taking up this concept of truth or discernment and being willing to admit that you're wrong and look at other ideas before you go and make claims or make claims about others. PhD piled higher and deeper. Yeah, definitely. Learning more and more about less and less until you know absolutely everything about nothing. Isn't that what they say? PhD, finally done with your indoctrination. PhD. Arabic word for earth is nun, pronounced noon, is whale. Interesting. Explains everything we observe. Whale is encircled by Ouroboros serpent. Head is Australia. Perhaps, we've got the other stuff with we're on the back of a turtle. And then some of the ancient teachings were that the turtle has got 4 elephants on top of that. And then on top of that is our flat earth. I don't know what the truth is. Oh, by the way, check it out. Got a great t-shirt from my buddy Alex. Gleason map. It's interesting. It's the UN map too. Isn't that cool? And a whole lot of other interesting maps. I think World Health Organization. Why would they use that map? Strange, isn't it? Maybe they killed giants and dragons and made them either look stupid or evil. I think giants definitely existed. I've seen so much evidence, and it's very compelling, photographic, and I know photographs can be manipulated, but when you see enough of them and they're all very authentic looking, like who's got the time to go and create thousands of these and fake them? I know AI can fake anything nowadays probably, but then you got all the old articles, and you've got all the old the texts, and you've got the mythologies, and when you take all of that combined, that's the thing. You got to look at it, look at the gestalt. Don't just look at one little thing that contradicted the possibility, oh, that picture turned out to be Photoshop, so all of giants is a hoax. No, there's literally mountains of evidence, and if you don't do your due diligence, you're gonna come to the wrong conclusions, I think. And I think maybe what they're trying to give us as dinosaurs are actually, if they're even finding those gigantic skeletons, are formerly dragons. And why they would hide dragons over giants? Probably because that's in alignment with the ancient mythologies, which is in alignment with the ancient books, which is in alignment with an entire cosmological model that they say is superstition, and we're supposed to just buy it. Because why? Because NASA went to the moon, and the ISS is circling us at 250 something miles. Bullshit. Pinocchio gets eaten by a whale. Frisbee Earth. When does the dog catch us? Not soon enough, Lenny. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't do well on a vegetarian diet. I go very whole food. Like if you replace meat and different kinds of animal-based proteins with soy-based products or processed foods or God knows what's coming out of the current vegan frozen food section, you're going to end up sick probably because of all the stuff that's in there or all the stuff that's not in there that you need. And a lot of people don't know how to eat properly. And then there's this whole thing of eat right for your blood type. And then there's the Ayurvedic approach, which is looking at the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, these different kinds of blood types that have been talked about for hundreds, if not thousands of years in the Ayurvedic traditions. So maybe it's just a fact that certain people absolutely need things in order to survive and live healthy lives. Maybe that's a myth. Maybe it has more to do with their ability to take the time and have the knowledge to make food that nourishes them based on plant stuff. And then, of course, going back in history and, are there any archaeological records of vegan-based societies? There doesn't seem to be anything. So I don't know. But I do know that I have a lot of energy and I can do a lot of things and I'm getting old and I don't think that's just because I eat a little bit of cheese now and again. All right, so the text stopped coming in. I think this is probably a great time to wrap it up. I thank you all for staying tuned. For those of you who are here for the whole thing, what legends you are. And I hope this gave some insight to people. I hope we can start getting along better and working together. I've got friends who are very much of the Globe or NASA space model, and they believe all that stuff, and we can still have conversations with each other and get along. But I have other friends, because of my political leanings and because of things that I've shared, not on YouTube but on Facebook, have just after an entire lifetime of friendship, have just walked away from me because they don't agree with what I agree with when it comes to whether men can get pregnant and whether we should be face raped and by things going up the nose and engaged in gene therapies without evidence. So there's never been a more important time for people to do their due diligence and look into official narratives and whether they're true or not. Because if you believe government, which literally means mind control, government, without checking into it, then you kind of deserve whatever happens to you. Yeah, I do have friends. I'm very, very fortunate also to have like-minded friends in real life, not just you wonderful people who are here in cyberspace, and so many names I see all the time: Derp, Jeffrey, Mary, Super Conscious. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for all the comments in the videos as well. We need to find the others, as Terence McKenna always used to say, right? And I'm not talking about all the people who are really into psychedelics, dude, because that's a whole other rabbit hole unto itself if you dig into who promotes psychedelics and what connections they have. And due diligence, if it's a matter of life or death, literally, for you and your loved ones. And sadly, no matter how hard you try to show people some things, they will never see them because their egos are too invested. There's too much brainwashing there. They're spending too much time on the government indoctrination machines that we have in our living rooms. And and on that note, much love to everybody. Everybody says one love. One love. We're all one. We're all part of the same creation. And we do need to keep our hearts soft because they definitely work better that way. And don't let them petrify. And don't let the bastards get you down. And don't start attacking other people who are on the same team, who are just trying to figure shit out and make sense of the world. And if we all follow that advice, we might be able to start ushering in a better world. But there's a whole lot of negative shit going on right now that we need to try and figure out how to heal, because it's really healing that needs to happen, because nobody wants this. Even the people at the top, they just want love. They don't know it. They've turned their backs on something that they've not experienced and they don't know how to experience, and they've replaced it with addictions or things that are far worse than addictions. Okay. So, on that note, thanks. Thanks for tuning in and listening, and till next time.